why do so many people have poor health?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at the adult population as we speak right now, 80% of the adult population has a diagnosed chronic illness.
Okay.
And a chronic illness is a disease of lifestyle, a disease of choice. If you try to treat a disease of lifestyle with drugs and surgery, you essentially make people feel better while allowing them to commit suicide. That's a bit harsh, but it's true. Often when people make a statement, they say you should do this. And my question is, who are they?
Yeah.
Where did they read it and can I have a copy? Reality exists. If it's true, it's true, always. And the second point is that ignorance isn't bliss. So just because you don't know a truth doesn't mean that truth doesn't apply to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to move by design, do CrossFit. If you want to eat by design, do paleo or keto. If you want to think by design, do objectivism. And if you want a nervous system that functions at its best, do chiropractic. Babies should be getting checked by chiropractors at a pretty young age. Because checked doesn't mean treated, right? You listen to the words that I use.
Check.
Right? Check. Yeah, you should check. Is it a healthy spine and nervous system important? Absolutely. Should we check it to make sure it's working at its best?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And not just for babies, right? For anybody that has one.
Don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride.
Welkom iedereen, luisteraars, bij de podcast It's Just a Ride. Vandaag zitten we met een goede vriend en een medische... Hoe kun je dat
Specialist.
Specialist, ja. Hij komt uit Australië, dus vandaag zullen we het meeste in Engels proberen. Proberen inderdaad, ja. Dus geef ons een beetje de ruimte om wat foutjes te maken. En we zullen wat zoeken moeten naar woorden. En ja, Najib.
Take it away.
Take it away.
Okay, so we have a small introduction in English as well, to introduce you, of course. And it says a lot about you, and I think it's something that we could explain and dive into later on. But our next guest is originally from Australia, down under. He has a great passion for health, well-being, exercise, sports, and especially Australian football and CrossFit, but especially his family, of course. And before he moved to the Netherlands in 2018 with his wife and son, he ran a very successful wellness clinic in Australia for 10 years.
Yep.
This gives him a wealth of knowledge and experience to do the best, and he has worked with a wide variety of people. So, excuse my English, with a wide variety of people, helping them aspire the extraordinary life they deserve, and seeing the power that comes from having healthy, functioning spine and nervous system. His whole life he wanted to be a healthcare professional where everyone could come to and trust that their entire well-being would be taken care of. That is why in 2006 Matthew graduated from it with a double degree at Murdoch University in Perth, Australia, one of which was a Bachelor of Chiropractic. He expanded his qualifications with a certified chiropractic wellness and lifestyle practitioner. This is an internationally recognized qualification which states that we are all designed to be extraordinary and health is our default setting. That's why he does not only focus on symptoms, but he looks at the problem from a holistic point of view. We are proud to have the only chiropractor in the Netherlands with this qualification as a guest in our podcast, Matthew Brooks. Welcome, Matthew.
Welcome, mate.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Of course. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. That was a lovely intro, and your English was perfect. Prima.
Exactly. Thank you. We have I think we have a lot to discuss. I have known you for about a month now, I think.
Yep.
Through because of Bob, he was the first one of many in this region to go to chiropractic optimal health, and he met you there. And he before I even met you, he already told me a lot about you and how about your expertise. So I think that we could all make use of that expertise. So again, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. And it's a real privilege to take care of Bob and his friends and family, and it's nice to be making a bit of a difference already in the Netherlands, I hope.
Yeah. Certainly make a difference at my life and my problems, my back, and thank you so much for doing that, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So, what will we begin to discuss?
Well, the first thing I actually wanted to know is you ran a very successful wellness clinic in Australia for the last 10 years before moving to the Netherlands. What was your motivation to leave a very successful wellness practice behind and start over again in a cold, rainy country such as the Netherlands?
Yeah, well, it's a good question. My joke at work is I came to the Netherlands for the weather. So you just stole my punchline. So thank you. No, why did we move? Well, first of all, it was a family decision. We decided we needed to mix things up a little bit, travel, have some adventure, and do it at a time when my son was at the right age. He was 6 when we left to come here to the Netherlands. So that was the main reason. We wanted to travel and see the world. And probably the only thing about running a wellness practice for 12 years was that you have to give a lot of yourself. And perhaps what I'd lost was a bit of work-life balance, which wasn't sitting well with my values. So we decided that we would change that rather than just sit there and maybe not be as happy as I wanted to be. We decided to, make the change and get some realignment back in our life.
Okay. And why the Netherlands? I think before you make such a decision, you look around the world and think maybe there is another place, but
I think it was fate. We'd been thinking about doing something different for a few years, and every time we sat down and talked about it, my wife and I, Chloe, the Netherlands just kept popping up. We'd see articles about the happiest teenagers in the world, having some of the best quality of life and work-life balance standards. So it just kept coming to us, and it just turned out to be the right thing for us to do. How we ended up in Groningen was fluke. I just Googled chiropractic jobs in the Netherlands and found a wellness-based practice that matched with my values. And one interview later, the rest is history.
Okay. So you had a job interview before you came here to the Netherlands, eh? Okay.
Yeah, we did a couple of Skype interviews and we seemed to fit Vince and I quite quickly, so that was good.
Yeah. Okay.
You stated that the chiropractic, like the office, matched your values. Could you explain a bit more about their values and your values that matched?
Yeah, so there are two types of ways that you can practice chiropractic. Well, there are many ways, but there are two philosophies that you can utilize. You can be a pain-based practice, or you can be a wellness-based practice like we are at Chiropractic Optimal Health.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I practice back home. Like you guys said in the intro, it was about more than just treating people's back and neck pain, but trying to get to the underlying cause of their problems and change their health and the quality of their life, and not just how much their neck and back hurt.
Okay.
Not saying our way is better, but just different, and the one that I align with the most.
Yeah. So pain-based is nearly to locate the pain and nurture that, so that okay. But the whole thing around is not relevant to that, or
Well, we start that way, of course, because most of our clients don't know that we're wellness-based when they book their appointment and they come in with back or neck pain. But we help to teach them that there's a bit more to wellness-based chiropractic. That's about the nervous system, it's about their health potential, and it's about addressing why they ended up in my office in the first place. So teach them about things that they can do for themselves with their own quality of life to ensure that they move towards health and not away from it.
And could you tell about the why you choose wellness? It's, as I stated in the intro, your whole life you wanted to be a healthcare professional where everyone could come to and trust that their entire well-being would be taken care of. That's quite a holistic point of view. Is that something that you had early on, or you grew into that?
Yeah. You mentioned my football, Australian football already, and it's always been a big part of my life as a junior and an adult. And I was never the most athletically gifted, but I really did everything I could to get the most out of my body and out of my career in football. So I was, from a very young age, trying to get an advantage somehow over my peers. I would look into nutrition, best ways to train, meditation way before it was popular. These sorts of things. And so that I was that way inclined from a very young age, and also a bit controversial. I remember thinking as a 13-year-old that it was a bit weird that we drink cow's milk, that we're the only mammals on the planet that continue to drink milk after infancy. But it's not our milk anymore, it's the milk of another mammal.
Exactly.
And I always thought that was a bit weird. And I think that's why you guys like me, because I'm
a bit weird.
So, yeah, those two things I think were always going to lead me towards asking questions about health, asking why. And then I found chiropractic, which was lucky. It was lucky because I applied for physio, chiropractic, what else? Podiatry. And I got into all of them, but for some reason I decided on chiropractic, even though I'd never seen a chiropractor before I started studying. But after the first philosophy class at university, I knew I'd make the right decision.
Are you a big believer of fate, as you mentioned before?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm probably not something I give a lot of thought to per se, but I guess I believe in fate. And yeah, what do you guys think about fate?
Yeah, I do think that if you experience something, if it's bad or good, that it's meant to be experienced.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a bit of fate, I think. Yeah.
Being a parent, you talked about good or bad there. I talk regularly with my son that mistakes are a learning opportunity. I guess that's essentially fate, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So you say mistakes are a learning opportunity.
Yeah, for him, he makes mistakes. He gets upset at himself. I thought, don't be upset. Only get upset at yourself if you make the same mistake twice. Something to learn from. Of course, we're all human and we'll make the same mistake twice probably. But I guess that lends itself to fate a little bit.
Yeah. Do you think that things, as Bob said already, if something happens, it is meant to happen, whether it's, so to say, positive or negative, it kind of needs to happen in your life so you can reach on the next stage or...
Yep, I do. And I think in terms of having regret, that's also something you shouldn't do, because you are the person you are today because of the things that happened to you and the decisions you made. So accept it, appreciate it, learn from it, and try not to make the same mistake again.
Yeah.
I think that's a good value to have, because nowadays we tend to think that mistakes should be prevented. You should not make mistakes. You should, at the first try, have a perfect score or whatever. But it doesn't work that way, and you only kind of lie to yourself if you think that mistakes should not be made.
Yeah, we put a lot of pressure on yourself.
I think that's the correct word. You put a lot of unnecessary pressure on yourself.
Because perfection is undefinable. So if you aim for perfection, you'll always fall short because you can't quantify it. But you could always aim to do your best because you can set standards and goals and criteria around your best,
Yes.
can't you? But perfection, that's hard to quantify because
Yeah.
my perfect looks different than Bob's.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's subjective, but yeah.
Have you, just this pops into my mind, have you read, do you read books? Or
Yeah, not as much as I should. I've got lots of books on the shelf
Okay.
with the intention of reading them.
Well, the reason I ask is because you said you always have to do your best because perfection is subjectively and not as it is. Yeah, when do you reach perfection? Never. But the reason I asked the question if do you read books is because it's the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. I don't know if you.
I know the book. I haven't read it.
Okay, just one of those agreements is always do your best.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
which I think which resonates with me perfectly because of the unnecessary pressure you put on yourself if you want something to be perfect.
Yep.
I think the two of us, in preparation of doing this podcast, like setting things up, we already told each other the only thing we can do is to do our best.
Yep.
We, of course, you want to have a perfect podcast, but yeah, we have to make mistakes, learn from them, and go on, move on, and just be and build better.
Well, if you wait for it to be perfect, you'll never start.
Exactly.
And if you have a big enough why, it's worth doing now
Yeah.
and getting better over time. If your why and your passion's big enough, you should just start. I remember that was some advice given to me when I first started my public speaking back home. I was creating a talk and I was practicing it and waiting for it to be perfect, but there were so many people that missed out on the opportunity to hear what I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you do a substandard public speaking gig or podcast, if one person hears something that changes what they do tomorrow,
Exactly.
then it was worth it, right?
Yeah.
I used to also think that if I didn't have 15 people in my practice, that was capacity, right, for my health talks. If we needed a bigger space, we'd rent somewhere. But I thought if it wasn't 15 people, then it wasn't worth my time. But actually, some of the very best talks I did was to one person.
Mm-hmm.
They were engaged, they nodded their head, and years later they tell me that it changed their life. And you can't buy that.
No,
Mm-hmm.
So
it's priceless.
yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, of course.
Do you have people telling them after they visited you that you changed their lives?
Yep.
Could you explain a bit more in what way, or is it physically or mentally as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was very different for a lot of different people
Mm-hmm.
because of their own values. So some people, in fact, I try to make this clear with all my clients that they don't come to me because they've got less pain.
Mm-hmm.
They don't come to me because they've got pain. They come to me because that pain or that problem is costing them something they love. So when you can give that back to somebody, it changes their life. If it means playing with their kids, their grandchildren, going to work to earn money to put a roof over their head. I had some amazing clients back home. One in particular, Vincent. He is a disabled fella.
Mm-hmm.
He was born that way. And when he came to see me for the first time, Vincent would have been 21, I think. But he was sitting in my waiting room like an 8-year-old on so much medication that he just sat there rocking and drooling. Vincent used to have like 30 mini seizures a minute.
Okay.
So he was so doped up on drugs, he was just shaking and drooling. And after a short amount of time with us, he went down to having one seizure a month. He got a job. He could work. I knew when he come into my practice because the door would smash open, it would hit the wall because he was so happy to come in. He'd just run through the door and he would joke with everyone in the waiting room, and you could hear his laughter as he was walking down the street. And I always remember that because I think most people had given up on Vincent. Like no one gave him a chance, right? Like, you know, he goes to many professionals and they say, this is Vincent now. This is his life. And because we took the time to give him an opportunity, we changed his life in an amazing way. So that's one of my miracle stories.
So you actually saw him getting better every day.
Yep.
Like from what he was to the extraordinary that he could be.
His version of it, right?
Is his version, exactly.
That's right. Yeah, very cool.
And after the treatments, you also got off the medication, or is that still
just the one medicine off the list? I can't even tell you what he was on, but and one seizure a month from having 30
a minute.
Yeah.
That's a miracle.
The 30 a minute were the micro seizures.
Mm-hmm.
The one a month was his his big seizures on the floor, but still, it was amazing.
But someone else is also treating him for whatever. Someone prescribed the drugs to him.
Yeah.
But nobody said to himself, maybe it's not the right way, or are we improving his life or not?
No, but that's why to be in that model, that medical model, where healing comes from the outside in, and you really only have two tools in that model, which is drugs and surgery. So, that in terms of creating health, that'll never do that. Mm-hmm. And we can talk about that a bit later on if you like. But but giving his body back some of the things that it needed to work at its best, and in this case, a nervous system that worked under less stress, under less pressure, it changed his life.
Yeah.
So do you, in that particular case of Vincent, do you also recommend other things like change in his life, such as start sports or meditating?
Yeah, Vincent's mum was very proactive with him. She was wonderful. So I shouldn't take all the credit, because Vincent's mum was she was a client of mine first, and when she heard the message, she thought, hey, maybe it's for Vincent. He was already getting some physical therapy. But remember, when I first saw Vincent, he just sat there rocking. Mm-hmm. So it was Vincent didn't do much of the physical therapy. It was someone else moving him and stretching him and that kind of stuff. So, but that certainly changed, and he was working. He was working in a cafeteria. What do you guys have here? You guys have brownies and downies?
Yes.
He was working in that kind of a in a setup.
Okay.
Which is super cool.
Cool. That's super cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so they have a goal or something to do and achieve something.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know that they ever thought that would be possible. He was 20. He was 21.
Yeah.
So I think they thought that was his life.
Yeah.
Until chiropractic.
Yeah.
Not me. Take no credit. Take no blame. But chiropractic changed his life, so that was cool.
Yeah.
About chiropractic, do you know why? I think in the Netherlands you don't have like an education for chiropractic. Why is that? Well,
do
you know why that is?
No, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure this year or next year some sort of local chiropractic school has been set up, but not locally. You still have to study abroad, with the idea that eventually they'll finish it here in the Netherlands. I don't know exactly, but it's gaining momentum because, more chiropractors are moving to the Netherlands. We're helping more people. The word's getting out there, which is why I asked Bob already to do a Google review for me. I'm not sure if you did that, Bob.
Of what?
A Google review.
Oh, no.
Not yet, Bob?
I don't think so. Still, yeah. Yeah, I owe that to you because my positive experience with your knowledge and...
it's funny, you said you owe it to me, which would be nice, and thank you. But the way I ask my clients to do it for me is because they owe it to themselves and they owe it to their friends and their family. So if people knew that chiropractic in our office was more than just about back and neck pain, it was about health and wellness, and they knew about the wonderful things we were doing for people every day, then maybe more people would come in. And if more people came in and utilised our services, maybe then chiropractic would be on the basis for sacring.
Yeah.
Right alongside physiotherapy.
Mm-hmm. Where it needs to be.
It needs to be.
Yeah.
And then we get to help more people.
Yeah.
which is the goal.
Yeah, that in these times, the only people who can afford chiropractic. Are you seeing? I'm one lucky,
Yeah.
one of those guys. But yeah,
Anyway, we try to do our best to make chiropractic affordable for as many people as we can. But of course, without insurance, it can be difficult for some people,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, but that's a whole other discussion. That's because of insurance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Do you think it will be in the basic insurance, or?
Yeah, it's a matter of time. The more people that use chiropractic,
Yes.
people power, right? Like, they'll-
Yeah.
it's a matter of time. And it's funny because it's not on there. It's put under that. What category is it put under when you have insurance? Alternative.
Alternative. Yeah.
How's the word alternative perceived by you guys?
Yeah. Now, if I alternative kind of means that it is not normal or not like the
Second
regular.
best, or yeah.
Less scientific.
Probably
Yeah,
like that.
maybe,
You feel
Yeah,
like like less researched.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like you said already, I've got a 5-year double degree. So I spent more time at school than most physios. And in some cases, as much time at school as a medical doctor. So then for it to be considered
Alternative.
or unscientific
Mhm.
is quite crazy, because we're sitting in the same classrooms as
Mm-hmm.
the physios and the doctors, learning all the same stuff about biochemistry and biophysiology and all the,
Yeah.
it's crazy, right? So if anyone's listening and you think chiropractic's a unresearched, unscientific quackery, it couldn't be further from the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They need to do their research.
Yeah. Well, at times it's been
Yeah.
branded that way because, we sit outside the scope of medicine. We have a
Mhm.
different theory and a different basis behind why we do what we do. And in the past, that's perhaps been a little bit intimidating
Yeah.
for medicine, because if people don't get sick in the first place,
You don't need medicine.
Yeah.
perhaps. But that doesn't just come with chiropractic, by the way. It's not a golden egg that fixes everything.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that at all either.
No.
The first time I got introduced to a chiropractor, I discussed it with several people around me, close by, family as well. And one of them told me, should you, like she actually stated it like this, should you do this? Because, and she literally said, I have a friend and her husband works on like an emergency room or whatever in a hospital, and she sees people coming in from a negative experience of chiropractic. Is that something that is familiar with you?
Well, the friend of a friend of a friend story.
Yeah, exactly.
Is super common. And yeah, so I guess the biggest risk with chiropractic is that it might cause a vascular event, TIA.
Okay.
TIA,
Yeah.
when you make a correction in somebody's neck. The research that's been done previously stated it was a 1 in 5.85 million chance. So you had to do 5.85 million neck adjustments before you had a adverse reaction.
Yeah.
However, the research, if you read it, said that those chiropractic adjustments were performed by people that weren't even chiropractors.
Okay.
It was a chiropractic type maneuver performed by...
By a friend of a friend of a friend.
Exactly. Yeah. But the newest research that's come out has said there's actually no correlation at all between the neck adjustment and the TIA. What the research is suggesting is that those people were going to have one regardless. They were unhealthy people that smoked or obese, and they could have easily turned their head to reverse their car and had a TIA, which means that a properly trained chiropractor will look for red flags that suggests that you may be somebody that could have a reaction to a neck adjustment, and they would utilize a different technique that was much safer, that didn't involve the botkraken.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
How can you notice that?
well, case history. So if you tell me you're a smoker for the last 40 years, and if I look at you and you're overweight and you don't eat clean, you don't exercise regularly. That would be immediate red flags, and that would lead us to do some more testing, that were physical exam tests to work that out.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think you kind of point out exactly the difference between the different types of chiropractic, because before I met you, I guess it was like 2-3 years ago, I went to another one, and which was less holistic, just pain symptoms. Oh, you got pain in your back. Let me adjust this, and see you next time. No questions if I smoked or my nutrition, whatever. Yep. So I think you pointed out exactly the difference between those two.
Yep. And once again, I'd like to say it's not bad to practice
exactly
in a pain-based model, because anyone that's not in pain, that's amazing, right?
Yeah.
It's just not the way we choose to practice, because we have some different goals that we want for our clients. Like I remember you talked before in my introduction about the international chiropractic, the CCWP that I have, the International Wellness Qualification. After I got that qualification, I joined a group of practices called the Life by Design group, and I was the only one in Australia at the time. And the premise that we all held as a group, as a body, was that we wanted 1,000 families under chiropractic care living life by design. So we wanted to change the life of families.
Exactly.
You know, we didn't just want less people in pain. So that was a big goal that took more than just chiropractic. It also took into consideration how they ate, how they moved, how they were thinking, and try to tick as many boxes as possible in terms of what it takes to create a healthy human.
Could you, are there some or several reasons that make us unhealthy? If you know what I mean, just like for instance, smoking or bad nutrition. Are those things that'll make us less healthy?
Well, I think the first question should be, how do you define health? What does it mean to you guys to be healthy?
To be full of energy, and no pain.
Free of pain, full of energy.
Yeah.
Anything else? Those answers were good, by the way.
Oh, yes.
Thanks.
We've passed the test.
Yes.
Not that come into mind right away. But
a lot of people, basically, when I ask that question, tell me having a lack of symptoms or complaints equals health. But if you look at the World Health Organization's definition of health, it states health is being in a state of complete physical, social, and mental well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or symptoms. So you can feel good and still be sick. So how do we be healthy? Knowing what it takes to be healthy and doing it on a regular and consistent basis. We call that being pure and sufficient in the things that people need to be well. And if you're not, then you're toxic and deficient, and those things lead to disease over time. So it's not just about knowing what makes us sick, it's also about knowing what we need to do to be well and doing it, even if you don't like doing it.
discipline.
Yeah.
But it takes less discipline when it becomes tied in with your why. Like if you value health, then you'll look into what it takes to be healthy, and you'll do it. And mostly you'll do it because you know that if you're healthy, everything else you value in life will benefit. Most people put family as their number one value. But if they're not the healthiest version of themselves, their family suffers. I see that with my mothers all the time in practice. They put everyone else first because I think it's the most important thing, and their health declines, and that can't be a good thing for the family. So that was a bit of a long way to answer your question. And I didn't even give you any answers.
But I think it is good to think about what is health to me.
And so the chiropractic philosophy that I was talking about before, the one I fell in love with that first day, was that chiropractic, the philosophy is that health is default. We're designed to be well.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to be the healthiest version of yourself, the most important organ in your body needs to work at its best, the central zenuwstelsel. When it works at its best, because your spine is free of a blockade or subluxation, then the innate intelligence that created the body, that heals the body, that allows the body to shift into balance and therefore better health, gets to flow free of interference, and that shifts you towards a better standard of life, which is exactly the definition of health.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, it's just one requirement. It's just one box that needs ticking is a healthy nervous system. It's as important as good food and exercise. The only difference is people can question it because it leads to problems over a period of time, but it's still a requirement. Nobody I know ever questions oxygen. No one ever says, nah,
Don't need it.
don't need it. Because if they did, they'd die in 3 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, having a blockade doesn't kill you in 3 minutes, because if it did, then we'd have everybody in our office getting checked, and that would that'd be amazing. So yeah, sure.
But what causes a blockade?
Yes.
I guess there are multiple and several answers, but in general, is there something that you can pinpoint perhaps in daily life or?
Well, first of all,
affects it?
it's all tied in with what I was just saying.
Mm-hmm.
If you have too much stress on your system because you're not living in a complete state of physical, mental, and social well-being,
Mm-hmm.
that stress builds up and accumulates over time, and that it essentially results in a blockade, in a stress point forming in your body. Now, the tricky thing is a blockade happens to be a stress point that causes more stress points.
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes a bit of a vicious loop. But what are some of the big things? I mean, don't get hit by a car or fall out of a tree.
Okay.
That'll cause a blockade every time.
Yeah.
Of course, nowadays we're sitting behind desks
Yeah.
a bit too much and not moving enough. So it's the combination of those two, not just poor housing, but not enough exercise, quality movement. Emotional stress. People come in telling me all the time that they feel their stress in their shoulders or in their low back, or some people not even in their back but in their darmen. Yeah, buikproblemen. So, yeah, it's really a combination. It's really about knowing how to live life by design, and that's how you prevent a blockade.
Yeah.
Which we talk about. You're gonna have to pay for that. No, I'm joking. We'll give some more hints and tips as we go through.
I recently, in preparation of this podcast, I was wondering, we people see ourselves perhaps as great beings, being kind of on top of the food chain. How come that lots of people have bad backs?
It's a good question. I think we could probably go outside of that and say, why do so many people have poor health?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you look at the adult population as we speak right now, 80% of the adult population has a diagnosed chronic illness.
Okay.
And a chronic illness is a disease of lifestyle, a disease of choice, right? So of course, if you've got less health potential, you have the ability to also get back pain, neck pain, headaches, and migraines, are things that benefit from in our office. But it comes from having less health. But the scary thing is, it's 50% of the entire population now that has a diagnosed chronic illness, which means kids, young people. And a good example is they have to change the name of type 2 diabetes. They changed it from adult onset diabetes because it wasn't coming on in adults anymore. It was coming on in children. So they just changed the name from adult onset to type 2 diabetes. Mm. It's a chronic illness caused by disease of lifestyle, disease of choice. So people have forgotten how to eat, move, and think by design. We're living in a world that we're not wired for. Our genes are 50,000 years old, depending on what your belief system is. But our lifestyles changed dramatically 10,000 years ago. And as a result, we've never been sicker. I always talk about, when you look at a killer whale in SeaWorld in America, how does the killer whale look? With his dorsal fin all droopy, Does he look like a happy, sprightly killer whale or a depressed one?
Yeah, like a depressed one.
It's because he's living in a pool.
Yeah.
He's supposed to live in the ocean. He's supposed to catch his food instead of being fed. You took him out of his environment, you put him in one he didn't belong in, and he gets sick. And it happens at zoos too. They give lions now blood pressure medication when they get sick because that's the answer.
Yeah.
Do you think that is similar to humans as well? Put them in a different environment.
Yeah, absolutely. We're wild animals living in captivity. If you put a cow in a pen and feed it corn, it'll get fat real quick, which is good for business, but not good for the cow. And if you put a human in a pen, i.e. a desk, and you feed him grains, i.e. look at the food pyramid, the very bottom, all those grains, he'll get fat, sick and unhealthy too. Not to mention all the emotional stress we have to deal with now. They say we're under more stress in one day than our ancestors were in a whole year. So that's why we're so sick. And then the people we turn to help us get better think that the answers lie with drugs and surgery, which is amazing because it can save your life, but it can never recreate your health. If you try to treat a disease of lifestyle with drugs and surgery, you essentially make people feel better whilst allowing them to commit suicide. That's a bit harsh, but it's true. I'm getting a bit fired up.
Getting fired up.
Yeah.
Good questions. Good questions. Do you think that's a controversial statement, or is that what you guys see when you look to the world as well? Do you see fit, happy, healthy people? What do you guys see?
No, if I can speak for myself, I think I also have some issues with the world we live in these days, and it's also has effects on my health, I think. Yeah, so that that sounds a bit how I look at the world. Yeah,
and it's pretty topical at the moment. If you think of COVID, I think it's quite clear now. We can call it Can I call it a pandemic of the unhealthy? Would you guys take offence to that?
I don't.
No.
The CDC said 94% of people that end up in hospital, intensive care and or dying from COVID had at least 4 comorbidities, 4 diseases of lifestyle. And we wonder why we're so sick.
Makes you think.
We won't even talk about why we'd vaccinate everybody instead of just the sick people, but maybe we can talk about that on another podcast. Unless you want to talk about it now.
Yeah,
it's up to you. If you say if you have like a strong opinion, and you say I would like to talk about it.
How do you guys feel about the possibility of having to have a COVID vaccine in the future? When they make it mandatory, if they make it mandatory, like in my country.
Yeah. Is it in Australia? Is it mandatory already? Okay.
Yeah. They've got dates set now for first and second jabs before you won't be able to go to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we also have strong opinions about that, but also we try to be healthy, and we think if we do our best to be healthy, then we have an immune system that fights off viruses, and I think we don't really need that, especially people of our age, and healthy people with no comorbidities.
Yeah. I mean, the evidence it's there.
Yeah.
So I think there was to be diplomatic, there is a role for vaccine to protect the people that need protecting, and we know quite clearly now who those people are. But to force it on healthy people it was the mistake that was made, I think. And the more you read, I read some information from the people that report adverse reactions from the vaccine, that already since the COVID vaccines were rolled out, we've had more adverse reactions reported than in the history of vaccination.
Yeah.
So that's also something
to keep in mind.
To keep in mind, right, when you're making that decision.
Yeah.
But how do you cope with that personally? Because, as you say, in Australia it is mandatory, and I presume you have a lot of friends, family, etc. in Australia, and here it it isn't mandatory yet. Yet. So how do you
And
cope with that?
Hopefully not. Well, we find it very frustrating. I mean, now we're going into a bit of a rabbit hole, but I think people in Australia are scared because of how they're communicated to by the media. So I try to share as much information as possible. I'm prepared to take the criticism.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny though, because the friends and family back home don't often comment on posts that I put on Facebook, and I wonder if that's because they know that I'm fairly well prepared to argue or debate back with them.
Yeah.
But we find it frustrating and scary, and it's a big enough motivation for us to never go home.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we feel. If the rules don't change, we're staying here forever.
Yeah. And also the cases and people dying of COVID in Australia is not much.
No. Melbourne,
but they have the most drastically measurements.
No.
Measure.
Melbourne's the most locked down city in the world for this whole period of time, and their numbers, and like we had 30,000 new cases here last week, I think, in the Netherlands, and the people in hospital and the people dying was still very, very low.
Yeah,
and those numbers are much higher than what's happening in Australia. It's crazy.
But every country deals with it differently.
Yeah, because Australia's got a different story, being isolated, being an island.
Yeah, okay.
They took on different strategies, but we feel quite blessed for our timing of our move to the Netherlands.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Anyway, is that enough COVID?
Maybe.
Maybe for now.
For
We'll
now.
come back to it.
I also maybe it's a bit relevant, but you also sent me a clip one time, and maybe we can listen to that. Everyone has a different point of view, and this professor has his point of view, so maybe it's good to listen to his point of view.
Checkers.
Objective it.
To address your comment about, it's hard to believe we're 18 months into this and still having a problem, and I would suggest the reason we still have a problem is because we're doing things that are not useful, and we're getting our sources of information from the Indiana State Board of Health and the CDC, who actually don't bother to read science before they do this. I'm actually a functional family medicine physician. That means I am specially trained in immunology and inflammation regulation, and everything being recommended by the CDC and the State Board of Health is actually contrary to all the rules of science. So things you should know about coronavirus and all other respiratory viruses: they are spread by aerosol particles, which are small enough to go through every mask. By the way, the literature that supports all of that is in a flash drive that we presented to you. It's been given to the secretary. As a matter of fact, it quotes at least 3 studies sponsored by the NIH to that exact fact, even though the CDC and the NIH have chosen to ignore the very science that they paid to have done. That is why you keep struggling with this, is because you cannot make these viruses go away. The natural history of all respiratory viruses is that they circulate all year long, waiting for the immune system to get sick through the winter or become deranged, as has happened recently with these vaccines, and then they cause symptomatic disease. Because they cannot be filtered out, and they have animal reservoirs, and this is a very important point, no one can make this virus go away. The CDC has managed to convince everybody that we can handle this like we did smallpox, where we could make a virus go away. Smallpox had no animal reservoirs. The only thing it learned to infect was humans. That's why we were able to make that virus go away. That will not happen with this any more than it will with influenza, the common cold, respiratory syncytial virus, adenoviral respiratory syndromes, or anything else that has animal reservoirs. So the reason you can't do this is because you're trying to do something which has already been tried and can't be done. Equally important is that vaccination changes none of this, especially with this vaccine. And I would hope this board would start asking itself, before it considers taking the advice of the CDC, the NIH, and the State Board of Health, why we are doing things about this that we didn't do for the common cold, influenza, or respiratory syncytial virus. And then ask yourself, why is a vaccine that is supposedly so effective having a breakout in the middle of the summer when respiratory viral syndromes don't do that? And to help you understand that, you need to know the condition that is called antibody-mediated viral enhancement. That is a condition done when vaccines work wrong, as they did in every coronavirus study done in animals on coronaviruses after the SARS outbreak, and done in respiratory syncytial virus, where a vaccine used in a vulnerable individual done the wrong way, which cannot be done right for a respiratory virus which has a very low pathogenicity rate, causes the immune system to actually fight the virus wrong and let the virus become worse than it would with native infection.
So there was a short clip of a professor speaking to a school board in Indiana, I think. Yeah, bit controversial his claims are, and he claims that some things we do to fight this virus is contradicting science a bit, but yeah, maybe science is not always how do you say it? Always on the same side, or always some you have contradicting science, and there is. So I don't know if he is right, or I don't know if he. Yeah. How do you look at it?
Well, I just think it's worth listening to. Like when people often when people make a statement, they say you should do this, and my question is, who are they?
Yeah.
Where did they read it and can I have a copy?
Yeah.
Then you can make up your own decision, right? But you should never just do what everyone else does because everyone else is doing it. I think that's never a good way to live your life.
No. And it looks like we, the measures are not. They're always pointing at one thing as
One direction.
one direction to fight the virus, and they're not talking about health or your immune system. Maybe that's why people are maybe suspicious or critical of some of these measures.
Yeah. And they shifted the goalpost many times, right? So it was get vaccinated to protect everyone. Then it was get vaccinated to protect yourself. And now it's like, well, keep getting vaccinated to protect yourself. If it doesn't protect only yourself, not anyone else. But the Dutch government's done a pretty good job of it, I think, in general, when you look at world standards. Some of the rules are a bit silly. I went to Efteling on the weekend with my son.
Yeah.
And you can stand in queues for an hour with no social distancing. But you can't go to the restaurant and sit down for 10 minutes inside to eat your lunch.
Yeah.
I think that seems a little strange. And I think that's the problem most people have, is when the rules don't seem to make a lot of sense. They get upset. But
Yeah, because as Bob stated earlier, it is all pointed into one direction. To me, it is strange that to fight this pandemic, I haven't heard about exercise, sun, nutrition, all those things. It's always pointing into one direction, which is highly suspicious for me.
It's a good business model if you're the person that is making the vaccines.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my wife about this yesterday. No one's talking about India anymore.
Like the Delta
variant.
Yeah, they're not in the news anymore. But what they did differently was they provided packs with ivermectin, vitamin D, quercetin, zinc, and they gave that to their people. And so I'm sure their numbers are still high. I'm sure people are still getting COVID, but they're in a better position to fight it. And they're not dying or ending up in hospital anymore. So no one's talking about them.
No,
but that was such a deadly variant that you could, in Melbourne, you could be walking down the street and pass somebody and catch Delta. That's how it was being.
Don't talk to your neighbors. If you see your neighbor in the supermarket, then don't talk to him. Yeah, that was said at the press conference by health minister out there
in Australia. Probably.
Yeah.
And they're talking about a QR sort of economy going forward.
Yeah.
They're building quarantine facilities. 600 million cost to build a quarantine facility when the healthcare system in such a poor state that they simply couldn't. In my state, WA, they closed their borders, and they still are, because they were banking hospitals or ambulances already. Without any COVID, ambulances had to wait outside the hospital because there were no spare beds. So there's clearly a problem there with the current facilities, and instead of spending 600 million to improve them, they're building a quarantine facility instead, so they can, I don't know, lock the unvaccinated away. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy, right? To build quarantine camps.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it's.
I think crazy is an understatement.
Yeah,
I think we've heard it before, haven't we? There's a little bit of history repeating.
Looks
some
like
of
it.
yeah.
Don't say it too loud.
No, it's a bit
because
controversial, but
That's a bit controversial.
Yeah. Coming back to India, I also heard there was a big city, I don't know the name of it, but they also, what you talked about, they prescribe ivermectin and other medication or
Supplements.
supplements. Yeah. And they got a very good response to it. And also think in Mexico they did some with the ivermectin, and yeah.
that was right at the start, I think.
Yeah.
Mexico. That's when it became illegal in a lot of countries to for doctors to prescribe it.
Yeah.
Illegal. Yeah.
You could do it because it's not a patented drug, so it's really cheap.
It's cheap to manufacture, and yeah, I know. Yeah, there was also some controversy with Joe Rogan. Do you know Joe Rogan? Yeah. And CNN claims he took horse dewormer, but yeah, everyone knows, and even the World Health Organization selected it for one of the, how do you say it? One of the necessary medicine in the world, and it has very good results for river blindness and other things. So billions of humans have used it, but they claim that it's horse dewormer or
That's what ivermectin is, an parasitic drug.
Yeah.
So you can spin that and make it sound
Yeah.
Unsafe, I suppose, if you had an agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's your point of view on supplements? Is it something that you think is necessary because we don't get enough from the nutrition, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in that life by design model, we talk about at this stage 4 essential supplements. So there are 4 things that you need to take on a daily basis because it's really hard now to get it from your environment, but they're essential. The first one is omega-3s or fish oil. Second, vitamin D, especially that's needed here in the Netherlands. Magnesium, because our soils are deficient in magnesium often because of current agricultural processes, farming practices.
Monoculture.
Yeah. And then the last one is a probiotic, dairy-free. So it comes from a non-milk source. So you can have good bacteria in your gut. They talk about a leaky gut, leaky brain. So there's a big link between unhealthy guts and mental health. I think it starts now in our stomach, not in our head, which is interesting.
It's quite interesting. I think perhaps you can fill in Joe Dispenza. I don't know if you know him. He's quite big on that theory that it all starts in your gut, I think.
I'm not an embryologist, but I think back in the womb, they split from one another, the gut and the brain. So they share cell structure. Yeah.
Okay.
That's interesting. Never thought of it.
So they're the ones we consider essential.
Yeah. So,
but I mentioned at this moment, and this touches on what you were saying about science. It's supposed to be debated.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be taken as gospel, and you're supposed to be prepared to change your opinion as the science gets better.
That's why we have science, right?
Yeah. One question is designed to challenge the question that was asked before it. That's just the way science works.
That's science, yeah.
So there are 4 current essential supplements, but perhaps one day we take one off or we add some more. But whilst there are essential ones, there are some other good supplements that you could take that aren't necessary to take, but that are a bit of a life hack or something that can add to your health and your life, which there are many. So a good quality protein, dairy-free protein, of course, is best, so you don't get the lactose and the casein, the two things that's the protein and the carbohydrate in dairy products that can irritate our gut. So you want those not in your protein supplement. What else? What do you guys like to take?
I take fish oil, vitamin D,
Magnesium.
I also have some protein, extra protein, yeah. And coming back to vitamin D, here in the Netherlands you don't have much sun. I try to get them as much in the sun as I want, and if I also take vitamin D when it's a sunny day, could you overdose on vitamin D, or could you have too much?
No, because I think we're all probably working from a place of deficiency anyway. So I think no, you can't overdo it. In fact, when our skin goes pink, that's actually a warning sign from the body that you've had enough vitamin D exposure in that site.
So there are signals that you can see.
You just won't take any more in. You won't do it well there, which is why even in Australia, people should supplement with vitamin D, because look at what you're wearing when you go into the sun.
Yeah.
You should wear loincloth like Adam and Eve. And then your whole body is exposed and you just get arrested for that.
It's not normal these days. Yeah.
So, once again, with our current lifestyles, it's really hard to get enough vitamin D, so you should supplement.
Yeah.
What I read the other day was 1,000 UIs, which is the dosage, per 11 kilograms of body weight. So that'd be a lot more than what your health sites will say.
Yeah, and also the boxes claims was my I think about 1,000. Yeah.
See, recommended daily averages is the bare minimum to not get sick versus the necessary amount to be optimal. Yeah, so it's down here, and that's just enough not to get sick versus having enough to be your best version.
Yeah.
I think it's a quite interesting, like you said, like to be the best version, extraordinary. Health is our default setting. How come that nowadays we're as far away from that as possible?
Well, we talked about it a bit already. We're living in a world where it's really hard to fulfill those requirements. Yeah, we're supposed to be living like cave people, but in the 21st century, that's difficult, right? But the other thing is, over the last 50 years, medicine's taught us that we get sick because we're built badly. It's our default. We get broken. It's just how humans work. But don't worry, when you break, we've got stuff that can fix you. We've just been conditioned now over years that health comes from outside in instead of inside out. Most people, when they get a headache, their first thought is, what?
Take an aspirin.
Right? Because that's the reason why they've got a headache.
Yeah.
They don't think water, too much stress, not enough sleep, shitty food. They just pop a pill, wait for it to go away, and then...
Quick fix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been conditioned that way. It probably fits the lifestyle. Like you said, a quick fix is necessary.
Yeah.
Convenience, of course. That's why fast food rules the roost, because no one's got time to cook.
No.
Or they can't afford it, because for some reason healthy foods are far more expensive than
fast food.
Food. So that's why.
Okay. So there's a lot of things we can do ourselves to move closer to our optimum state.
But it starts with believing that health is normal.
Yeah.
I'm designed to
our
be well.
Default setting.
It's our default setting. If you look at the reason why we get sick, the reasons that are told to us on a regular basis is bad genes, right? It's a genetic issue. I had no choice. It was predetermined. So if your health is predetermined, why would you even look into how to be healthier? Because your choices make no difference, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is not true. They say about only 5% of all diseases truly genetic. So even breast cancer, you haven't got the breast cancer gene. That just makes you predisposed to having breast cancer. Because a truly genetic disease means if you have the gene, you've got the disease every time. For example, Down syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? If you've got the, extra chromosome,
Mm-hmm.
every time, Down syndrome. But breast cancer, if you have the gene, you still need to initiate the gene, turn it on, and then you still need to promote it. And the way you do both those things, lifestyle choices. It's in all the medical textbooks, we know it. The scary thing for our kids, and this is why more children now have chronic illness, is because of a thing called epigenetics, which means the choices that we make as parents affect our children before they're even born.
Yeah.
So epigenetics means I can turn on the gene in my children. So then all they have to do is copy what I do in terms of their lifestyle, and they've got a much higher chance of getting unwell.
Yeah. Yeah, who was that? There was also a doctor. I think you know him. And he did a test with a adopted boy, I think, and yeah, in that case, the boy created the same cancer, I think it was, but and his point of view was that it's not genetic but lifestyle choices. Was that the doctor?
I can't think, but I know they do twin studies a lot.
Yeah.
So twins, identical DNA, different lifestyles, different results, different outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, yeah. So that's the scary thing for our children. That's why this stuff's so important. That's why podcasts like this. That's why me back in the day, public speaking, even though I hated it,
Mm-hmm.
I hated what it meant. I loved what it meant, but no one enjoys getting up in front of a crowd of people.
Right, yeah.
I love what it meant though, and the people that could help. But that's why these things are so important, because as a society, we are only getting sicker and sicker.
Mm-hmm. And I think this, not as much as our role, but it is for us. We want to create a bit of awareness about different topics, so people can think for themselves and make choices that they benefit from.
Yep.
Such as lifestyle choices.
Where did you read that? Can I have a copy? So they can ask. Ask that, right?
Yeah.
Because most people eat the way their parents ate,
Yeah.
and they eat that way because their parents ate that way, and no one ever sat back and went, "I wonder if this is why we've all got high cholesterol and type 2 diabetes."
Exactly.
Oh, it runs in the family. It must be genetic. Nope. It's not a genetic disease, type 2 diabetes. It's a disease of lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So if you copy what your parents did and they had diabetes, then there's every chance you're going to get it too.
Exactly.
But if you've been conditioned by the medical model over the last 50 years, you think your health is predetermined.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what we're talking about. The causes of disease. We already ruled out genetics being a major reason.
Yeah.
The germ theory. So if it's not bad genes, then maybe it's bad germs. Well, we know already that the germ theory has been misproven. Many people get exposed to the common cold. Not everyone gets symptoms. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because we all have a different level of health potential. We all have a different level of immunity at that moment, depending on the other choices we've made. So if it's not bad genes, and if it's not bad germs, then it's bad choices.
Yeah.
But not just one bad choice, by the way. So I'd like to make that clear. I think health is like a bank. I think you make deposits on a regular basis.
Yeah, exactly.
Which means at times you can take withdrawals. Like I love to have a beer. I'm Australian. I can't help it. That might be genetic. Actually,
That is genetic.
so I enjoy beer, but I feel like I earn it. I make good choices every day. I supplement. I train. I love my life. Try to get good sleep, unless the dog wakes me up at 2:30 in the morning. So I feel like I can. I'm in the red. No. What's the positive? Yeah, I'm in the red. I've got credits all the time, and I'm able to make some withdrawals from time to time. Occasionally, I make mistakes and make too many withdrawals, but then my body will let me know, and then I change it up again.
But What's interesting to me is that you say, I love my beers as well. I do. I am healthy and I have a healthy lifestyle, but sometimes I love to have a beer.
Yep.
So there's some type of balance that you must find.
Yep, absolutely. Because I think if you deprive yourself of things that you love,
Exactly.
that's not very good for you from a mental, emotional perspective. And let's remember that the human body is amazing. Look at how we treat it, and yet we're still top of the food chain. Like, you know, in most other animal species, if you do what we did to them, they would lose the ability to reproduce. Their ability to survive would plummet in nature, wouldn't it? Imagine a gazelle trying to run away from a cheetah if it weighed 40 kilos too much. he would die, right?
Yeah.
We're fortunate enough because of our big brains that we can get around that. We're amazing.
Yeah.
But you can only push it so far, I think. Well, we're seeing that. We are pushing it too far. And gosh, that opens up an even bigger question. That's not just with humans, but with our planet.
Yeah.
Because if you love yourself, then you should love if we're designed to be amazing and extraordinary, everything we needed to be amazing and extraordinary was put within arm's reach of us, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Until we thought we could do it better.
I once read that the like a kind of quote, which is quick fix as well, but it stated that the external turmoil, so to say, is a reflection of our internal turmoil. What's your opinion about that?
I have to think on that a bit.
I don't want to put you on the spot like that right away. Like,
Tell me what you think first, and then I'll...
I think, to me it resonated because I think we, as human beings, have inner turmoil, and which makes its way externally.
You mean emotional?
Emotionally, yes.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I think that's the most important place to start. It comes back to what we've talked about a few times. What is my why? If you know what your why is, then you can design a set of values that allow you to live in alignment with your why, which can then help you to determine your philosophy and how you make decisions. And I think when you have alignment, you move towards your goals. And I think it's an innate human value or goal that we should be healthy. So when you go to the gym, you feel good, right? And when you don't
feel good.
You feel shit, right? Unless you've trained 5 days in a row and you need a rest day, of course. So when we make choices that are in alignment with more health, we feel good for it. The only thing I don't understand is why it's so easy for us to make bad choices. I think that's the instant gratification part of it all versus a long-term commitment.
Short-term versus long-term,
Yeah, I think that's and I guess back in the day when the system was designed, we didn't have candy and chocolate or beer, did we? If we wanted fat because we, I don't know, felt down, you would go kill an animal and you'd eat animal meat and fat. If you wanted something sweet, you'd go get a low GI berry that you picked by, and in doing so you had to hunt and move like you were supposed to. So perhaps that's why it's easier for us to make bad decisions, because our lifestyle is so dramatically different than what it's supposed to be. We've got more ways to get gratified. Most of them are instant, and that leads to problems, I think.
And perhaps because not many people think about their why.
Yeah.
If their why is clear, then they might be able to, like the instant gratification, to say, no, not today, because later on I want health.
It doesn't
something.
tie in. Yeah. In fact, we talked about purpose earlier, and everyone has one. Everyone's got a why or a purpose. The difference is some people have clearly defined what their purpose is, and the others have allowed their life experiences to define it for them.
Exactly.
Subconsciously. And the problem with that is your subconscious chooses all experiences, good or bad, which means we're guessing. Imagine making decisions in life based on guesswork. Sometimes you'll get it right and you'll feel good. Other times you'll guess wrong and feel shit. So clearly, if you have something that's defined for you, by you, It's easier to make decisions that are in alignment, and
Exactly.
and then you feel good. We talked about this earlier with Bob, I think. I'm an objectivist. That's my philosophical framework, and that's a philosophy that's created by a lady called Ayn Rand. And we have a little clip.
Yeah, we've recorded a little clip, and that.
Yeah. Why don't we listen to that, and then I'll talk about it.
Yes, here it comes.
Objectivism. It's a guide to living here. Developed by this writer. Wondering who needs a philosophy? She answered that. To deal with real life, we need a view of the world and our place in it. Now, some people have strong opinions on objectivism. It's a philosophy that's controversial because it advocates selfishness and says altruism is evil. But we'll get back to that. Rand's philosophy looks something like this. It starts with the idea that reality is objective. The universe is what it is, not what we want it to be. And wishing otherwise won't make it so. Next, it states that our reason is all we have and all we need for understanding the world around us. And if reason is an absolute, you can't accept contradictions. It also says, your highest moral purpose should be the pursuit of your own selfish happiness. Now, selfishness can be misinterpreted. It doesn't mean exploit others for your own gain. It means realize your highest potential by pursuing rational ends and live in harmony with others by respecting their right to their own life and happiness. The result of this philosophy is a life of reason, purpose, self-esteem, a philosophy for living on earth.
If you know that this life is all that you have, wouldn't you make the most of it?
So that was a short clip explaining objectivism. Can you explain deliberately?
Well, I've kind of mentioned it a few times already without actually referencing objectivism, but to make that a bit simpler for people, the first point is that reality exists. If it's true, always. And the second point is that ignorance isn't bliss. So just because you don't know a truth doesn't mean that truth doesn't apply to you.
Mm-hmm.
So as a human being, to get the most out of your experience, you should be selfish enough or love yourself enough to discover as many truths as possible and do them. Whether it comes to health, you could apply that to business. Some things are true. Success leaves clues. If you want to be more successful in your career, go have a look at someone that's already doing it, right? Mm-hmm. But as an example of truths are true and ignorance isn't bliss, if we take this podcast to the roof together, boys, and I said to you that gravity is not real, you should jump off. You wouldn't jump off, right? But if I jumped off thinking that gravity wasn't real, would I float? Or would I fall too? I would fall, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because even if I don't believe in gravity, gravity exists, right? So that's a pretty obvious analogy or an example of how if you care about yourself, if you have good enough self-esteem, you'll be selfish enough to learn every truth that applies to you and you'll do it. So how logical is that? What a wonderful philosophy, I think, right?
Yeah.
Now there's more to it, and if you're really keen on it, you can look into it, but reality exists and ignorance isn't bliss. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Are you guys objectivists now?
Yeah, we talked about ignorance is a bliss more than often, because sometimes wanting to know everything and seeking other truths or other subjects, it doesn't always. How do you say?
Sometimes it's more like a burden, because the truth and you have to act on it. It seems simple. Everyone knows how to explain it quite simple, but to act on it and to persist is way more difficult.
Yep, I've experienced that myself too. So, not living in alignment for me has a bigger impact, I think, than people that don't know how to eat, because it doesn't just affect me nutritionally; it also affects me emotionally because I'm not in alignment with the things that I value and that I believe. But contradictions can't exist. That's the secret, right? Yeah. So when you know something and you don't do it, that contradiction is what kills you. I don't even mean that literally, but the inner turmoil that comes from being in contradiction.
Exactly.
And some of those contradictions are subconscious because you didn't sit down and define what it is that you believe. So that's where it starts.
Yeah.
Not easy to do, especially the mental stuff. Like when it comes to nutrition, if you guys want to be healthier, do you choose an apple or a cookie?
I would choose an apple.
Yeah.
And if you want to be, when it comes to exercise, is it a better idea that you go for a run or sit on the couch?
Yeah.
For a run, obviously.
Yeah.
But those things are quite tangible and they're obvious, right? But to try and mold your brain,
that's hard.
That's hard because you can't pick it up, you can't shift it around. And not everyone wants to read about the 4 or 5 branches of philosophy because sometimes it's long-winded and it's in Latin or something. It's difficult. But one nice exercise that I like to do with clients or people, anyone, is to see if you're living in alignment or there's a contradiction. Sit down and write down their top 5 values. What are the things that you value the most in this world? Now, a lot of people find it hard to even write down one thing, let alone 5. But those that can write down 5, after you've done what do I value, write down how do I spend my time. And if those things don't line up, if they don't overlap, then you either don't value what you value or you need to change how you spend your time so that they do. Because the contradiction there is what will kill you. Now, a lot of us will spend most of our time working. Yeah? But we won't have work as our number 1 value. But that's not necessarily a bad thing because if you clearly define what work means for you, then you might find that it tips into everything that you do value. So I work... No, not me. I love my job. Let's just say you are working as a toilet cleaner. And you don't particularly enjoy cleaning toilets, but the money you earn allows you to buy organic groceries. It pays for your gym membership and a little bit of spending money when you go on vacations with your family. Now it's perfect. Yeah. It ties in. So they don't have to be perfect, but they have to at least contribute to one another.
Yeah.
But it's a fun exercise and you'll be surprised. Oh, I value health. Number 1. How do I spend my time? Working, computer games, hanging out with shitty people, and drinking too much beer. Don't actually value health at all.
Do I value health?
Which is cool. Like you're allowed to value those things. I mean, you're allowed to spend your time doing those things, but really you should change what you value so there's more of an alignment.
Yeah.
But that's deep, huh? That's not easy to do.
No, certainly not. No.
It's not easy to do, but I think that's where you have to start. If you want to change something in your life, you have to change yourself, your inner, your mental. And for me, that should be something that we learn about in school.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Trouble is the people teaching you. I wonder how many of those teachers value
their own health
or being a teacher. The way they get to shape young people's lives, like that's one of the most important jobs in the world.
Very important.
And yet we probably I'll speak from an Australian perspective. We at one point in time were giving away university education for teachers for free because there weren't enough. So we let people in that were not the best educated and not the most inspired people that wanted to teach because it was easy and free.
Yeah.
You can't have that.
No.
But so that's the difficulty in having it taught at school because the people that are teaching it probably don't even get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I agree with you. It should be in school or at home. The parents as well.
Exactly. Either way, whether it's at home or at school, I think this is knowledge that should be available for everyone, because that's the way you take control over your life. And I think most of the time, like nowadays, we kind of lost control. We kind of like living on autopilot, doing what other people tell us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And why are they doing that? Where do I find a copy?
That's right. Yep. And the thing is, we should ask ourselves that question regularly through life too, because your values will probably change.
Mm-hmm.
Like you guys probably don't have children high up on your list of values because you don't have kids.
Not really.
But you will probably one day, I'm assuming.
Maybe.
And then when you do, they'll probably want to sit on that list somewhere, right? Or not necessarily children, but the kind of parent you want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that needs to sit somewhere. Like back home, being a role leader, an educator, a community leader, that was quite high on my list at one point. It's lower on the list now because I probably needed to invest in me, my health, and my family for a little while. So I put work and I put it down on the list. But that was super brave, because it resulted in me moving to the Netherlands, selling a 12-year successful practice, moving away from family. Not easy to do that.
Not easy to do, no.
But it lined up better. So I was brave enough to do it. But how many people sit in an unhappy life doing what they've always done because they've always done it? I mean, that's a lot of people. And it's
about estimated 95% perhaps.
Yep. It's funny, I'm getting a lot of messages from people back home because of COVID who are inspired now to make some changes to their life as well.
Yeah.
Shift countries.
Well, that might be the upside to this whole COVID pandemic.
Yep.
Is that we kind of look for things ourselves that we can do for our health or
for our career. I've got friends that are quite big into the laptop lifestyle, who are offering free mentoring and coaching for people that have lost their jobs because they won't get a jab. Mm-hmm. They're going to help them out, teach them how to work from anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that's the upside. Like people now reaching out to each other. Oh, you don't want to get vaccinated, so well, let me help you find another job or whatever. Just people caring for each other and helping each other out.
Yep. Yeah, there's definitely been some good things to come out of.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
As long as we focus on the good things.
That's right. And it's been really easy to focus on the negative, hasn't
exactly.
it?
Yeah.
But that's a choice.
That's a choice.
Sometimes the choice is forced on you, unfortunately. Like for people that don't want the jab that now can't work in Australia, that wasn't still their choice, but they're making it harder for them to make that choice, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We got back to COVID.
Yeah.
Oh, that happened. Yeah. And coming back on, hey, you with your clients, you ask them to put on a list where what they, how do you call it?
In Dutch?
Values?
Yeah, the values of, and health is maybe not as much valued or not as think of until they get sick. Mm-hmm. Then people are making changes to their lives. Yep. But there needs something to happen first. They want to make a change.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's how... Certainly now that I'm new in practice here in the Netherlands, that's how most of my clients come to me. They've got a problem. And that, that's not just always back pain. People are coming in for, a few different reasons now. Back home, I saw a lot more families and a lot more people come to see me because they were well and they wanted to get more well or stay well. It is a shame. And on the flip side of that, if I don't do my job really well, a lot of those people, if they don't get immediate results, or even if they get very quick results, they lose motivation through the most important part of their program, which is the second part, which is where we strengthen and stabilize their spine and their health so that their issues don't come back so easily or at all. But of course, they go back to their busy, stressful lives and they don't live health every day like I do. So the motivation dwindles. And unfortunately, people will stop care and come back with the same motivation or the same complaint as they had originally. And on the second or third time, they normally get it and they hang around and they fix the underlying issues. But we've been so conditioned to reactive instead of proactive that the people are sick, and not just with back pain, but with sometimes much worse.
Yeah, mental health and all those
heart disease, diabetes, cancer, all those things. It takes a lifetime of hard work to create those. Actually,
Just like you say, it's more reactive instead of proactive. Actually, we should, like, health is our default setting, and we should maintain that default setting throughout our lives. But the thing we do, we let it come until a point, until there's almost no return, and then we go to people like you and say, well, this is our problem, how can you help me? But actually, we have to proactively maintain our health.
And I think it comes back to the why. Do we believe that health is default? And if we were to use Ayn Rand as an example, like, how do we know? We could use our reason. We could look. We could say, hey, the human body is amazing, isn't it? Like 2 half cells come together from the sperm and from the egg to make the 3 trillion cells that make you up, that work harmoniously together. And it works like a fine-oiled machine. And we have no idea how that happens. There's an innate intelligence that controls that. That's just phenomenal, right? How could that innate intelligence that you can be a pack-a-day smoker for 15 years, quit, and then 7 years later have no evidence of being a smoker because your lungs can regenerate, because your body wants to move you towards health. It doesn't want to be sick. You just need to create an environment in which it can thrive in. Like it's self-evident, really, isn't it? And I've told you already, I mean, we are living in a world we're not wired for. We treat our bodies so badly, and yet
Here we are.
It takes a long time to break us, right? A chronic illness takes a lifetime to create because your body compensates for you that whole time. Like I said before, it'd be amazing that every time you didn't fulfill a requirement, you died in 3 minutes, just like oxygen. Because then everyone would do everything perfectly or they'd die. Right? Is that a bit brutal? I'm not sure, but it'd be cool.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I answered your question there, but
yeah, we're satisfied with it. We also like to talk about some nutrition parts. I asked you before what kind of diet is most suited for humans, and I know there's no perfect or one size fits all diet for humans, but how do you look at that?
So I think it's hard to eat perfectly by design these days because of, well, the way we ship our food.
All of the choices.
Food's no longer seasonal. You can eat peaches all year round because we just import them from somewhere else. I think there are definitely things that human beings shouldn't eat. Controversial, this one in the Netherlands, but grains or wheat-based products, bread, cereal, pasta, these days they're just not by design. Wheat was never found in the big wafting crops that we find it in now. It didn't grow all year round. Wheat's been modified to grow in all seasons and to be stored for as long as possible. So we're not eating, the wild grain that existed back in the day. And grain contains gluten and or phytates, and both cause leaky gut. And we've already talked about leaky gut and how that it causes a leaky brain. But it also results in the body essentially attacking itself and creating autoimmune disease. And if you look at society, what you see is basically a lot of the consequences of having a high grain diet. In fact, as grain became more of a staple part of our diet, heart disease went up.
Okay.
The whole low fat, high carb period resulted in more cardiovascular illness. And it was because of one guy, I think I've forgotten his name. It's been a while since I did my nutrition talk, but one guy essentially fudged the statistics, and he made saturated fat that comes from animal look like it was the cause of heart disease. And based on those studies, funded by grain companies, no doubt, resulted in people eating less fat and more grains. And human beings wouldn't exist as they exist as a species now if it wasn't for the protein and mostly fat that came from eating animals.
So your opinion is that we as human beings should eat meat?
Yep, but we should eat the right kind of meat. So we shouldn't eat that cow that's been living in a pen and been fed corn, because cows don't live that life, do they? Cows eat grass and they walk in the field.
Yeah.
So if you eat an animal that's healthy, that lived its life like it should have, then consuming that kind of an animal is it's good for you. We probably consume too much protein, a little, but it's mostly the quality that's the issue. And in my opinion, it's also the fact that we don't exercise enough. So if you have toxic meat sitting in your darman for longer because you don't promote motility with movement, then that toxic product leaches into your darman and it can cause colon cancer. So that, I don't know if you guys have heard the link between too much protein and cancer in the colon, but essentially it comes from unhealthy animal products staying in the bowel for too long.
Yeah.
So if you wanted a blanket, I could talk about nutrition and the controversies behind it for days, but if you just want, hey Matt, tell me what I should eat, I think if you had a mix between the paleo diet and the ketogenic diet, then you'd probably go pretty good.
Could you explain it a bit, like the paleo keto diet? What?
So paleo would be no grains and very little dairy. So the dairy you would eat would be hard cheeses, full fat creams, lots of vegetables, some fruit, some seeds, and quality meat. Keto goes a bit like a lot less grain, a lot less carbohydrates, from a vegetable sources, and you want to jack up your fat intake, which comes from animal products, but also some plant-based stuff too, like coconut, avocado. But I mean, people listen to that and think, oh, that sounds difficult. It's actually not that difficult. Lots of recipes out there. You just have to do some Googling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So too much talking.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think nutrition is such an important part of our life, and kind of is a bit underestimated, I think.
Guys, I'm not in the toilet.
Someone is pouring a bit of water, so don't think he's on the toilet.
Urinating on the floor.
Yes. That's great. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I think nutrition is such an important part of our lives, which we don't often give as much as time or energy or attention to.
What comes down to convenience again, doesn't
convenience.
it? But my wife's a functional nutritionist, and she helps people with chronic health issues. So if you want to lose weight, no, it's not fair. If you're an athlete that wants to have prime nutrition to get the most out of performance, then you probably don't want to go see my wife. But if you're overweight, metabolic issues, hormone imbalance, thyroid problems, then a functional nutritionist is someone for you to see. But very strong and very clear evidence to suggest that we need to eat animal products, which will be controversial here because I know there's a lot of vegans in the Netherlands.
Is there? Yeah.
I think the group is getting bigger and bigger, yeah.
Yeah, I've noticed it at least. But I think it also, it appears to me that it's a bit of a cost thing here as well. So to eat healthy animals, good quality meat's expensive.
Yeah.
It's cheaper to be vegetarian. So I think That's perhaps where the vegetarian influence comes from in the Netherlands. But when you eat vegetarian and you take away meat, what do you typically add? Grains.
Okay.
You have to. How do you bulk up your meal? Like, you should add more vegetables, which was a discussion that Bob and I had the other day about Asian countries and the amount of rice they eat.
Mm-hmm.
If you look to the traditional old school diets of Asian countries, it was vegetable based. Once again, rice didn't come in the big wafting fields that it comes in now. That's modern farming that does that.
Mm-hmm.
So they used to eat a lot of vegetables. They also work the field, so they're consuming a lot of energy with manual labor.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different story. But if you look at Japan and the Netherlands, in terms of Japan eats a lot of white rice, the Netherlands eats lots of grain. If you look at the chronic health statistics in terms of obesity and diabetes, it's similar to every other Western country.
Mm.
What I did find interesting though was the third leading cause of death in the Netherlands was psychiatric. The dementia, Alzheimer's, these things are really high on the list. But remember what we spoke about before? About a leaky gut coming from gluten and how that might cause a
leaky brain.
So I found that very interesting when I did some research. And it's a staple part of the Dutch diet, isn't it?
Bread or
Bread.
grains? Yeah.
Bread,
grain.
grains, yeah.
I think bread is like the number one.
Yeah, consumed
You eat
product.
it every day in the morning, at work, on your lunchtime.
And then you combine it with the most cross-reactive thing you can have with gluten, and that's dairy.
Dairy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a piece of bread with a slab of cheese,
Yeah.
and they're the most cross-reactive food groups you could put together,
Okay.
and it has a big impact on gut health.
But what is a kind of an alternative? For instance, I myself, when I'm at work, I eat bread.
Yep.
For lunch. What is an alternative that you could say?
Well, all the early breads came from root vegetables. So sweet potato. So there are a lot of recipes out there where you can make your own bread.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you probably don't have the time to make your own bread. You can also make them from seed. We eat seed-based bread at my house. Almond meal flour instead of... But if you wanted to make a better choice, perhaps you'd find spelt, ancient grain, a lot less gluten, better for you. Gluten-free breads are bad for probably other reasons. When they take the gluten out, they've got to put other stuff in there because gluten is actually something we added to wheat.
Okay.
So that it's better for cooking because it helps to thicken up stuff. So that was something we bred into wheat. So the old pastas from Italy, gluten-free.
Okay. Yeah.
But you can't easily get that or source that these days.
And I think that's something that you point out. Exactly. We don't have alternatives at, how do you say it?
At our disposal, or
Not easily.
Not easily.
No.
No, it is.
You need to eat a salad. That's instead of a sandwich, you have salad with your cold meats and your boiled egg and that kind of stuff. It just takes preparation, doesn't it?
Cost time.
Costs time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or you get creative. Like, so we have spaghetti bolognese in my house, but my wife will make the spaghetti from spaghetti squash or zucchini.
Yeah. I heard it.
When we have rice, we have cauliflower rice. My wife cooks it so well now that I went home for dinner the other night and I was like, "Are we eating rice?" She said, "No, it's cauliflower rice." I'm like, "Oh, couldn't even tell. It was so good."
Okay. Yeah.
Like I said, the earliest breads that existed came from root vegetables. Yeah, not from grain, because grain, like I said, it didn't come in the big fields. If you found wheat, you found it like any plant in nature. It came in little patches, right? So imagine back in the day seeing this much wheat. You can't see that, guys. A small patch of wheat and thinking, gosh, the amount of food I'm going to get out of that, it's hardly worth my time. Got to keep moving. I'm going to go catch an animal or
Exactly.
pick some
Yeah.
root vegetables or some other vegetables. So what we eat today isn't what was found back in the day. And that's why it's not good for us now.
No, I understand. But it is natural. It's coming from the earth, and maybe is that why people keep consuming it, because it
Yeah, and I think we've been told that it's very good for us. If you look at your food pyramid, sponsored by Kellogg's and stuff, you should be eating lots of cereals, as that's very good for you. Agribusiness is not quite as bad as Big Pharma, but
It comes close.
yeah, there's a big gap. But but they've got some agendas in there.
Yeah.
In there as
Ultimately, they want to sell their products.
well. And that's where the like fat is addictive. People like fat. So when they take fat out, they have to add more sugar. But that's even more addictive. Sugar fits into the same receptors in your brain as opiates. So it made sense to have a low fat, high carb period of time, because we need to get people addicted to our products. Let's take the fat out, let's put the sugar in. So it still tastes good, but it's highly addictive and people keep coming back for more. So, marketing companies, they're pretty high up there in terms of their deceitfulness. Agribusiness, Big Pharma.
Yeah.
I hope not too many people are shutting off now. This guy's crazy.
No, you're honest, and I do think you have a point.
If you want a copy, I've got it. I've got a copy. If you want a copy, where did I read it? I've got a copy for you.
Yeah,
So,
we'll
then you can make up your own mind.
we'll add it to the description of the podcast.
Just like you said, if people may think you're crazy or whatever, but the thing is, it is your point of view, and it might help other people make better choices.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just ask everyone to be honest with themselves. If you eat grain and dairy on a daily basis, just look at yourself, be honest. Are you the happiest, healthiest version of yourself? And if you're not, go ahead and change something. Maybe what you're doing is not working for you. Perhaps it's self-evident, right, that things are not working, and be open to change. Or stop complaining.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, that's a bit harsh as well, but
Sometimes we need to be harsh. Huh?
yeah.
Life is not meant to be easy.
No.
And doing hard things is making you a better human, I think. Yeah.
We've talked about stress a bit today, and we kind of make stress sound like it's horrible, right? Like that it only contributes to dis-ease. But that's what we call distress. But you also have eustress, which is the good stress that you're referring to. So it's that's the challenging yourself.
Yeah, like I exercise or
It's hard, right?
It's not
stressful
easy.
on the body. It's not easy, but damn, it's good for you.
Yeah.
Moving your family across the world because you're not the happiest, healthy version of yourself.
It's not easy.
That was not easy.
No.
It was stressful, but it was eustress. It was good stress, not distress.
Yeah.
Jumping out of an aeroplane with a parachute, that's called eustress because you're going to land safely. But jumping out of a plane with no parachute, that is distress because you're going to fall.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we just need to define what stress is good for us and and utilize it.
Yeah, I think stress is a natural part of life, and just like the gazelle you were talking about, he's in stress as well when he's being chased by a predator like a lion or whatever. But after that, he goes back to his normal state of being and just enjoys life and the grass, whatever. So you don't. The thing is, stress is evident, I think, in life, but you don't. The point is to not stay there.
Yep.
Go out of stress and go back to your normal state.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That's like in chiropractic, for example, blockada is stressful, but also it has an impact on your body's ability to adapt to stress. So if you can't adapt, you can't easily come out. And the longer you spend in that stress mode, the more sacrifices you're making to your health. Because the thing about stress is we need to adapt to it and move on from it,
Exactly.
and then heal from it. But if you stay in that stressful state and you keep making sacrifices that allow you to adapt, eventually those sacrifices build up and break you down. And that's not just with the blockada, that's also with how we eat, how we move, and how we think. Was pulled off the, that would have been stressful.
Some distress.
For your equipment.
Yeah.
But you guys, you asked me about what's the best way to fuel a human being? And I said, well, you know, there's lots of science and evidence out there, but if you want two easy choices, keto and paleo.
Yeah.
What's the best way for a human to think? Well, in my opinion, one of the best ways for a human to think is to be an objectivist, because reality exists and ignorance isn't bliss. And then when it comes to movement, there are certain ways that we need to move as humans. There are boxes that need to be ticked. So you need to move slow daily. For example, our hunter-gatherer ancestors used to walk 10 kilometers a day. Our genes didn't change. They still need that stimulus. So on a daily basis, we need to go slow. We need to move. Can't go for a 10K walk every day though, can you?
No.
Right. No one's got time for that. So in my opinion, that's an excuse to have fun, socialise. That's on weekends, instead of watching, you can do this occasionally, but instead of watching a Netflix series, go for a walk with the family, kick the soccer ball, go to a museum, be active, move. But it's a human requirement. You need to move regularly. We also need to lift heavy. Back in the day, you had to pick stuff up. That's how you caught your food. Also, you had to go fast. Once again, that was either to survive from a predator or to catch food. You need to tick those boxes regularly. The hardest we have to work to get food is to walk to the fridge. We don't fulfill those requirements on a daily basis anymore unless you go to the gym and you do some strength training, or you do some power work, you do something, you move quickly. And then the last one is called mobility, or be mobile. Now, back in the day, that was daily life. That was bending, twisting, lifting, moving. Most of us are sitting behind desks and not moving enough. And so you need to find a way to stretch, do yoga, these sorts of things. But in my opinion, if you want to make that really easy and to fit the 21st century, you should do CrossFit. CrossFit acknowledges that there are 10 areas of fitness and that we should be good at all of them. CrossFit's principles are: be prepared for life. That's the premise, which is what we had to do back in the day by default. But now it's a choice that we have to make. So if you want to move by design, do CrossFit. If you want to eat by design, do paleo or keto. If you want to think by design, do objectivism. And if you want a nervous system that functions at its best, do chiropractic. And you're ticking some pretty decent boxes. And I just made it simple.
Yeah.
It needs to be simple. Now, it's still not easy to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning every day and go to CrossFit.
No.
But if you're an objectivist and you know that reality exists and I'm designed to be healthy and I need to move in a certain way to be healthy, then you'll find a way to get up at 6 because you value it enough, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple, not easy, but it can be easier if you think the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what is CrossFit? What kind of exercise is that?
Yeah, well, it's constantly varied functional movements, that's actually life, isn't it? Constantly varied, functional, that's lifelike movements. So that's the premise. So tomorrow I could go into the gym and I will do some Olympic lifting, a clean and jerk or a snatch, maybe some power lifting, which is a back squat or a deadlift, and then some high intensity interval training with a kettlebell, or some gymnastics with the rings or a pull-up bar, rope climbs. There might be some running or some rowing. Pretty fun, because it also ticks one other box that we get neglected in today's society, and that is community. Because you train with your friends. You train with like-minded people.
Yeah.
So you get to tick that fourth box, which is having a tribe.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
We as humans are very tribal, I think. Yeah. We like to pick sides and
One of the things I love about the Netherlands when it comes to tribe is the lady that goes and stays with the woman that just had a baby. You know what that's called? I forgot what it's called, for 2 weeks.
Like a voetvrouw or something?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's got a special name, but I forget it.
How do you call it?
But for up to 2 weeks here in the Netherlands, you can have a woman that knows how to take care of a baby,
Yeah.
help a woman that just had a baby,
Yeah.
teach her.
Yeah.
That's awesome, right? Back in the day, that would have been your auntie or your grandma or your mum, because the tribe, right? But now women don't have tribes. And we wonder why postnatal depression is on the rise. It's because mum's sitting there doubting herself because she doesn't know how to be a mum.
Mm-hmm.
But that's wonderful that you can do that here in the Netherlands. That's not normal in Australia.
No?
Okay.
Nope.
What is a normal thing in Australia?
So yeah,
See ya.
it's safe for you to go home now. See how you go. And mum's working, grandma's probably working. Like there's no one. Dad doesn't get as much time off as they do here in the Netherlands. So mum is really.
Yeah, that changed here recently also in the Netherlands, I think. First it was 2 days, but now you can
As a
leave
father?
for 5 weeks. Yeah, as a father.
For multiple weeks, I
For,
think 3 to 5 weeks or something like that. Yeah.
It's cool. And now we've gone into the family thing again. Remember I left Australia because I wanted some better balance. I knew that I'd done the right thing when I got here. And I went to the park with my son on a Wednesday at lunchtime. And I wasn't the only dad there. There was many dads. It's like, what is going on here? No chance in Australia that dad's there on a Wednesday at lunchtime. No chance. Maybe Sunday afternoon. Not even Saturday, because he's working 6 days a week.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a North thing or a whole of the Netherlands thing, but that's when I knew that I'd made a good decision.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think I don't know if it's whether it's a Netherlands thing or like a North thing.
Like I wonder if in the Amsterdam, if it's happening, the Randstad, I don't know if people have as much time if they're caught up more in the rat race than the people in the North.
Yeah.
Sure, but it's cool. Anyway.
What's your opinion about the rat race?
I guess I was caught up in it. That probably contributed to me working more, to have fancy cars that drove the exact same as my as a cheaper alternative, to have a house with more bedrooms than I needed because I've got one kid. If you buy more, you got to pay for it, so you have to work more. So I think the rat race is ridiculous. I think it's filling. I think you're trying to fill a triangle shape hole in your heart with square pegs.
Yeah.
And so you'll never find one that fits. And I love being here and being able to redefine myself. Like there were no expectations, there were no comparisons. You know, that was one of the best things about coming here. So I got to redefine.
Start over.
And focus on the things that mattered. My family, my health, my family, and taking care of my clients. It's cool. Because I even think that back in the day, wanting to be a community leader and an educator and inspirer, at one point shifted over to being about ego. I wanted people to know that I was doing those things instead of just doing them. It didn't start that way, but it shifted that way. So it was nice to get a reset.
Yeah. After a few years, maybe of chiropractic, of your own chiropractic.
No, it's probably just the last couple. When I wasn't the public figure, the internet sensation, that I thought that I was on the trajectory to meet.
Yeah.
I guess when I think back on that was more about ego and rat race than it was about helping, which is probably why it didn't work.
Yeah.
It's probably why it plateaued, because my why and my values were not quite there was a contradiction there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't like the rat race.
No.
It's so cool. Because of course we didn't ship everything over with us, right? We got a storage unit back home with most of the stuff in it. So we got to start again, and we got to be very minimalist. Actually, we didn't go out and buy fancy stuff. We went out and bought functional stuff. We didn't buy things for the sake of it. It's awesome being minimalist. Now we're still accumulating stuff like everyone does. But still, it's
What is the reason that you left your stuff in a box in Australia?
We were going to only be here for 2 years.
Okay.
So it was
temporary.
Yeah, it was a bit too expensive to be shipping it over to then ship it back. So that was the main reason why. We still bought our own furniture when we got here because we wanted the house to feel like
a new house.
Home instead of someone else's house. Yeah. But yeah, that was the main reason. And that we were supposed to stay for 2 years. We've already been here 3 and we'll probably stay another couple. We just bought a house, so.
Oh.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, it was a year ago, but but that wasn't on the cards when we moved here, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's better than you imagined it to be?
If I had my way, we're not going home.
Okay.
I love it here. My wife and son still see it as an adventure that will come to an end at some point.
Yeah.
But, anything could happen in the next 2.5 years. So we'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we also keep our fingers crossed.
So I was thinking, who am I going to have to... All these new clients that will be coming to me from this podcast that's spreading across the Netherlands as we speak.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to tell them all I'm leaving.
Yeah. But the intention was at first to stay a couple of years and...
Yep. Just get that adventure, tick that box, redefine myself, ourselves, and then head home. But back to that chiropractic point, by the way. Chiropractic is about the spine and nervous system. It's not about Matt treating my spine and nervous system. Mm-hmm. So it's really something I encourage with my clients from the start, that you're not here to see me. You're here to get checked. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter who does it, with what technique, as long as you walk out free of subluxation, you're a healthier version of yourself than when you walked in the door. But I do understand that chiropractic is a bit of an intimate relationship too, isn't it? You get up close and personal with people. So I understand why people, they like their guy,
Yeah, they get attached to their chiropractor. Yeah. Yep. I can understand that.
But you don't not go to the gym because your favourite treadmill's not there. You just run on the treadmill next to it, right? Because going to the gym's good for you. So you just pick another treadmill. So chiropractic should be like that. Of course, it's a little different.
Yeah.
So, what else you got?
I also want to talk to you about a little bit about children and the birth. Do you know anything about that? How is that going in these days, and maybe how should it be going?
Well, once again, I think it's much better handled here in the Netherlands than in Australia.
Okay.
98% of births in Australia are done in hospital settings. It's not really encouraged at all to have a home birth. Mm-hmm. Quite a lot of birthing here is done at home, which is really cool. Excuse me, guys, sorry.
No problem.
And the reason why it's really cool is because it's actually really safe to have a baby at home. I think it was either Canada or in the UK. Obstetricians and the hospital setting tried to make it to ban having a home birth, and they went to court. Mm-hmm. And in a court of law, they were able to prove that it was safer to have a baby at home than it was in hospital.
Okay.
As long as you weren't a high-risk pregnancy, of course, right? And I think the reason why is there's a lot less chance that there'll be any intervention. Birthing at home tends to be a lot more natural than if it's done in a hospital setting. In Australia, a lot of, depending on the hospital you go to, you'll end up with an epidural and then a cesarean.
Keizersnee, yeah.
Now, there's a place for a cesarean, of course, if it saves mum and bub. Amazing, right? But often we rush there, and that's a very different birthing experience now for that baby, right? And it's not just as simple as making a small cut and then lifting the baby out gently. It's like playing rugby, right? They're really wrestling that baby out of... It's like a WWF scene, right? They're really wrestling it out of there, right?
Okay.
And so the moment that you interfere or intervene with the birthing process, I think that sets up potential complications. And in my opinion, there should be a chiropractor in the perfect world at every birth. And if not, the baby should get checked in the first 2, 3, 4 days of life to see if there's any blockadas. Because that's the first physical stress that baby will be placed under that could cause a blockada.
2 or 3 days after birth?
Yep.
Okay.
I've adjusted babies in the birthing suite. So the baby's just been born, and I check mum and bub.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how come it comes to that? When the baby is only a few days old, then it needs to be adjusted.
It needs to be checked just in case it needs to be adjusted.
Proactive.
Being proactive, and the reason why is if the doctor intervened, then there's a chance that you caused a problem, a blockada. And one of my mentors, one of the Life by Design founders, his name is Joel Richards. His young son was born respiratory issues, wasn't breathing for himself, and they were trying to resuscitate him. And he wouldn't respond to anything that they were doing. They were sucking up the snot from his lungs and had him on a respirator and stuff, and he just wasn't responding. So they essentially handed him over and said, would you like to hold him as he dies? And Joel checked his atlas. That's the top verval in the neck. And it was subluxated, and he made a small correction, and his baby started to breathe before their eyes and saved his life. So the respiratory center sits inside the atlas, by the way, so it has a really direct impact on cardiovascular and respiratory health or function, I should say. So for that reason alone, I think there should be chiropractors. Babies should be getting checked by chiropractors at a pretty young age. Because checked doesn't mean treated, right? You listen to the words that I use.
Check.
Right? Check. Yeah, you should check. Is it a healthy spine and nervous system important? Absolutely. Should we check it to make sure it's working at its best? Absolutely. And not just for babies, right? For anybody that has one.
Yeah, most of humans have one.
Yeah,
right?
most of them. Yeah.
Okay.
I even adjusted a dog back home. This guy was a bit old, and he walked in dragging his back legs, and the owner said to me earlier in the day, can I check him at the end of the shift? So I brought him in, did some checks, never adjusted a dog before, but you turn him up, they're a bit like a human, right? So did some adjusting, did some movement, pulled on his tail, and he walked out of my office, tail wagging, right? It was cool. He walked out the door of my office, cocked his leg for the first time in like 6 years to pee, and he peed on my car.
Hey, Matt, thank you.
Guys, I want you to know this is my chiropractor. He's marking his territory.
Yeah.
So even anything with the spine and nervous system could get checked.
Okay.
But there are actually specialist animal chiropractors that exist. Mostly they work with horses.
Okay. Yeah.
So back to the baby thing.
Yeah.
So intervention in the birth process, I think,
is always
good idea.
Stressful.
And quite often the Caesar babies, they have issues with the gehemelte, the roof of the mouth.
Yeah.
So they have attachment issues. They kind of attach to the boob, and they get too much air coming in, and so those babies are often very buikkrampjes and spugen and very overprickled very easily because they're finding everything in life difficult, even eating, right?
Yeah.
Which they don't have much to worry about except for eating, pooping, sleeping. So one of the 3 things they do best doesn't go so well. It makes sense that the kid might be a bit prickled. So for all the parents out there that have prickled babies, a bit upset, bring them in for a check. Maybe it helps.
Yeah. Yeah, I've watched you adjust a baby, and it's very good to see, and very I can't get the word.
Also very different, right?
Yeah, very different.
There's no botkraken for a baby. Just so you know.
No. What can you do?
It's the same.
Just to check, but you can't adjust, or
it's an adjustment. It's just a low force mobility adjustment. So it's more of a movement pattern. There are some adjustments with pressing and pushing, but no high velocity moves.
No,
that's my preference anyway. Yeah, it's really cool.
Perhaps a bit personal, if you don't want to say, you don't have to. But was your son born at home or in a hospital?
In a hospital.
Okay. And how was that experience for you?
well, as a father, it was pretty amazing. I was so in disbelief when my mother-in-law asked me what his name was. I didn't want to tell her because I was like, if I tell you, then this is real. Like, this just happened, right? And that was pretty surreal. My wife had to have a epidural. The labour was quite long. And there was some suction involved. So Ari, my son, got his first adjustment when he was 10 minutes old. Okay. He also had some respiratory difficulties that they got a bit better after an adjustment, which was cool. Not the same as Joel's story, but still pretty cool. But yeah, pretty life-changing, as you can imagine, but only for very good reasons.
Yeah. And for your wife, was it like a birth with... so to say, lots of screaming and pain and...
No, she was a bit of a trooper. She was tough. It was long, so by the time she had to have the epidural, she was pretty exhausted. So the problem with an epidural, and the reason why my son probably needed a vacuum, was because when you lay on your back, which you have to with an epidural, now your heiligbeen, your sacrum, it can't drop out of the way because you're laying on it. So now the space for the baby to come out is typically smaller. So assistance was needed. My wife's also quite a small girl. Her twin sister had to have a Caesar because the baby got stuck. So that maybe there was a bit of that going on as well. But I do believe that the giving birth on the back because of the epidural had an impact on the birthing process. Not that we can judge men because we're men. We don't give birth, so it's the lady's birth plan. And my advice to the mums out there, though, is if you have a birth plan, make it a birth concept or a birth idea. Because I've seen too many women get depressed because things didn't go the way they wanted to, because they were not very flexible. They didn't know where to go next if things didn't quite work out the way they do. And sometimes that happens, of course. Yeah. At the end of the day, as long as we get a healthy, happy baby,
of course,
and a healthy, happy mum, then the baby can get checked. So.
Yeah. Well, the reason I asked is because, like, I think most of the people, we see birth as a lot of screaming and pain and perhaps blood, whatever. But if you listen to other women who had a birth at home or in water, it was way less painful. It was they like turned into like a bit of introspect or something, and just it all went naturally, organically. It just some kind of flow. Just no pain. Well, I think there was pain, but less pain than when a child was born in the hospital.
There was a obstetrician not that long ago. We were giving women chloroform. We were knocking them out for their labour, the befalling, because it was such a scary, almost like a disease, a pathology, right? It was such a scary thing, and the only way women could handle it was if they got knocked out. And this one doctor wrote a book because he said, one lady said to me, I'd prefer not to. And then she had this wonderful experience and she had a baby boy, and he was like, oh, maybe it's not scary. He did some research and he found that there's actually a fear-pain pathway in our brains. So you get more sensitive to pain when there's a perceived threat or if there's fear associated with it. So when we made having a baby scary, it was normally associated with more pain. When we made it a pleasurable, wonderful, meditative, calming experience, women enjoyed the experience. I'm not sure I can use the word enjoy, but I guess enjoy.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that just applies to lots of things though, not just having a baby, right? Fear pain pathway. A lot of people with chronic pain have such a fear or an unhealthy relationship with their body that they perceive things very differently than you and I. Touching them on their shoulder is uncomfortable. It's painful when it shouldn't be, because they've got so much fear attached with their bodies. So it's very interesting, that one.
I think That's just a small part of what fear can do to our body and our mental being, well-being.
But it ties in again, doesn't it? If you didn't research befalling, having a baby, so there was not clarity around the experience, they might be more fearful, right? You can apply that to every element of our life, right? If you ask why or where did you read that, can have a copy, and you educate yourself, then I'm sure life becomes a enjoyable one, like Ayn Rand says. Instead of a fearful existence, it becomes pleasurable.
Yeah.
Because we empower ourselves with knowledge.
And I think that's what we're doing here as well.
Yeah.
Empowering ourselves with your knowledge.
Yeah.
I also think that's why maybe some women are scared to have the baby at home, because maybe the hospital is safe, and if there is complications, then they can act quickly. But if you research on the home birth, then you see a much better experience than at the hospital. Some even call it traumatic experience at the hospital. And
I agree. Definitely.
Yeah.
Power is knowledge. I mean, knowledge is power.
Yeah.
Knowledge in action is power.
Yep.
Exactly.
I also read about the umbilical cord. Nowadays, in the hospital, we if the baby's there, they snip it right.
Cut it off.
Right off.
Right away.
And some people even say that you need to attach it for a day or maybe even longer. And eventually, if the umbilical cord is white and there's no blood or
nutrition.
Yeah, coming from the placenta, I guess so. That's sort of stepping outside my area of expertise, but stands to reason. Isn't it? That if there's a bit more nourishment in there, that I just don't know enough about what they would have done back in the day.
No, it's even weird if you keep it attached for a day or even longer.
Well, it's not convenient.
No, it's not.
You can see why they.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think, would that be convenient back in the day too? Would they be in a situation where the mum could lay there
with this thing,
with the placenta inside and the baby still attached? I wonder how long that would be viable as a hunter-gatherer.
Yeah.
I've got no idea. It's outside my expertise, but it stands to reason that there could be some more nutrients there. Oh, that's the other reason why a vaginal birth is better for the baby, because that first dose of probiotics comes from being born vaginally. The first meal that the baby gets is coming from all the bacteria involved in that process, which doesn't happen when you get born a cesarean. But that's also why it's really important for mum to be healthy, to have high levels of good bacteria in her gut, because
they need to pass it through. And that also needs to be really high in mum's breast milk, especially that first few feeds where it's the colostrum, the real thick, nutritious, fatty stuff. So, so people say to me, how can a baby, if a blockada is caused by stress, how can a baby get a blockada? Well, the stress starts in the womb. Imagine if mum is scared about having a baby. That mental, emotional stress will, the hormones cross the placenta, right? If mum's eating lots of grain, she's got a leaky gut, then there's inflammation affecting the baby, doesn't have good bacteria because she doesn't take a supplement. Stress starts from the moment we're born, because none of us are living in a world that we're wired for anymore. Yeah.
It's crazy, right? But also logical, isn't it? That's the thing that it just, that makes sense. Like, it's reasonable to say that.
Yeah. But how did it come so far?
That's the question.
Yeah. A friend of mine had a baby recently, and now you told earlier about the woman, that there is a few days to help the couple. They had a really good experience with that.
Good?
No,
not good.
No, not good. No, not doing the right things. It's
they got told off.
Not relevant. But sorry,
they got told off by her because they weren't doing the right things, or
I guess so. I don't know the extent of it, but
Okay, that's a shame.
I heard it was not a pleasant experience. But also when they got home, the baby started losing weight and lost almost 10% of their original weight, and they thought it was because of the breastfeeding was not
Enough flow.
started enough. So they went back to the hospital and they recommended powder milk
Yep.
and to
Supplement or instead of?
to wait. Eventually, the breastfeeding will start. But is that normal that the baby loses weight in the first couple of days? If it
Yeah, the baby will drop a bit of weight
yeah.
in the first couple, but then put it back on again. Although the Kunstvoeding, so we call it.
Yeah.
We could talk about that. That's an interesting discussion point. But did the mum's milk come back in after switching to the bottle?
I don't know. I don't know what happened after that, but
Quite often that will result in the breastfeeding stopping because there's no stimulus, right? There's no
No need.
yeah.
There's no need. So that when you breastfeed, it releases oxytocin, which promotes milk production, and the story goes on, right? But then if you switch to the Kunstvoeding, then it can actually. But once again, that's not my area of expertise. But it is interesting when you talk about the formula food, because there are some better choices for that too. Because once again, that's going to be cow milk based, right?
Based, okay, yeah.
So a lot of the time, a young, immature gut can't handle the casein or the lactose, because neither can adults, by the way, most of the time. So you can get hydrolyzed formula food, which means the carbohydrate and the protein is broken down into smaller parts. So instead of one being one large protein, it's broken down into either 6 or 7 pieces or into individual amino acids, which makes it much easier for babies to digest. So if any of you out there have friends that are their babies struggling on the formula food, that could be one alternative, a hydrolyzed version.
Okay.
Or goat's milk.
Goat's milk?
Goat's milk is much closer to human milk. So if you can
Okay.
get a goat's milk formula, quite often the babies tolerate it better.
Okay.
No soy-based milk, please. Soy is so genetically modified. If you give it to a little boy, the amount of estrogen it produces turns little boys' hormone profiles into little girls.
Yeah.
So that's the worst. No baby soy.
It's very
No
interesting.
soy milk.
No,
Okay.
no soy formula for babies.
Okay.
No soy for anybody, actually. Soy sits right along grain, soy, corn, and rice. But rice is a bit of a, sometimes it's okay.
The grey area.
Yeah, I mean, I think white rice is probably okay because it's just sugar, it's just glucose. Brown rice has phytates and lectins in the outer shell, the bit that makes it brown, and both those things can affect nutrient absorption and also make your gut leaky. So if I eat a grain, I'll have some sushi or something occasionally for the white rice. But typically I'll earn it. It'll be around training or something like that.
Yeah.
Also, we talked a bit about formula food for
sorry.
babies and breast milk. I know it's not your area of expertise, as you stated before, but do you have do you know what time a baby should be fed with milk from the mother?
So there's So you up to 2 years, baby should be breastfed. In the perfect world, 2 years, because the baby makes an enzyme called lactase for the first 2 years of its life. Now, lactase is needed to break down lactose, which is found in the milk. But after age 2, you don't make lactase anymore. So typically, that's when you should stop
Breastfeeding.
drinking milk.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's when we turn over to the milk from another animal. Now, cow's milk is heat treated and pasteurized, which means the lactase that's in cow's milk is destroyed, but it's got lactose, and we don't have any lactase, and the lactase in the cow's milk was destroyed, so we can't digest it, and that's why people get lactose intolerance. Nobody can tolerate it. Some people are symptomatic.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So, the thing you recommend is, if you have a child in a perfect world, breastfeed it for up until 2 years.
2 years.
Okay.
You introduce food around 9 months as well, so it supplements normal food. But even the food that we introduce is very interesting. So you should start with high-fat foods like avocado and low GI fruits like berries. But a lot of people start with rice meal, so like porridge made from rice. But do you think that would have happened back in the day?
It was hard, I think, to do it that way.
No hunter-gatherer sat there and found that little bit of rice, mashed it up, put it with water and fed it to their baby. They breastfed it, and then when it was showing interest in what mum was eating, she would give him some of the food, right? So terrible place to start. Don't do that, please. Start with high-fat foods, low GI fruits.
And GI, what do you mean about that?
The ones that don't affect insulin. So if it's high GI, you eat it and the sugars are released immediately and your insulin spikes to get rid of it. But low GI, it's more of a slow release sugar. So so you don't get insulin sensitivity.
Yes.
And yeah, if you can, breastfeed up until 2 years of age.
Yeah.
Once again, it's also very personal, so you
Yeah,
can't,
of course.
you can't sort of tell people what to do. Although you can tell them what food to start with. And I do have advice. There's a wonderful book if you're an expecting parent, or if you're already a parent and you want to be better. There's a book called Well-Adjusted Babies, and it's written by a couple of chiropractic gurus out of Australia who are just wellness experts. They're awesome. And if you buy their book, there's a chart that says which foods when. So you just copy the chart.
Okay.
Makes it super easy.
Yeah.
But banana doesn't kick in until 12 months or something. Very late. Most people think one of the first foods they will give a baby is
Exactly.
because it's
It's soft.
squishy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's one of the last.
Or long fingers, longer fingers here in Holland. It's a small cookie. It's very soft, and when it it's moist, and it gets very soft. But
I know the one. It's almost like a teething biscuit too, isn't it? Like
Yes.
Yeah. I talked with my girlfriend about the last time I saw you.
Yep.
You also said that you need to breastfeed for up to 2 years, and by the thought of having a 2-year-old on your breast, that was not the kind of way she liked it.
No,
but,
no, and it's personal because they've got teeth at 2, don't they? So I can imagine it wouldn't be the most fun thing to do in the world.
But there are options for nowadays. Huh?
And that's one feed a day, probably at that age. One before bed.
Exactly.
You know, it's not
the usual 5 at the beginning.
That's right. But yeah, no judgment, each their own.
Exactly.
We can't judge. We're boys. We got
That is totally up to them.
yes, dear. That's my advice, guys. Yes, dear.
Yes, dear.
That's always the answer. Yes, dear.
Key to success. Yes, dear.
Actually, speaking of relationships and the key to success, I helped a young fella out at work the other day who was having a bit of girlfriend problems because he was young and being a bit selfish, you know. And I said, do you think that was the best decision to go to the party, 2 nights in a row on a weekend when you don't get to see your girlfriend? He's like, oh yeah, but I bought her some stuff. I was like, oh, okay. I've got some advice for you. I said, go to a website called the 5 Love Languages and do the online quiz, because there are 5 ways that you can communicate love. Now, most people are really good at communicating love in the way they want to have love communicated to them. Right? So he likes gifts given to him. That's his love language. So he gives her gifts and thinks, tick the box. But she likes, clearly, quality time spent. So her love bucket was completely empty. He thought he was doing a good job. That was a contradiction, and they had a fight. Almost broke up. So he did the love languages, and now she knows how he wants love communicated to him. He knows how she wants it communicated to her. And they fill up each other's love buckets regularly, and he said they've never been happier. And that's a young relationship, but still, it was pretty cool. It was cool for a young man to do the quiz. That's what I thought was cool. because men typically don't want to do the love language quiz, but
So for any listeners, maybe it's time to do that.
Take the test.
Yeah,
take the test. And do it regularly. Like we talked about before, your values can change. So you should check in regularly with them. Well, your love language can change too. So check in regularly with each other. Like, you know, oh, my love language changed. My needs in terms of our relationship, they look different now. And I want to tell you that instead of get angry at you when you don't do them because you don't know them. Talk about it, communicate them, clearly define them, and then be happy. That's Dr. Matt, the love guru. You're welcome. That's a different podcast. R-rated, no.
Yeah.
That's your fault, boys. You told me to be organic and just
flow. Be yourself.
go with the flow.
Yeah.
Yes.
It just came up.
No, I think that is great advice, just to look into a love language. And I think in most cases you just jump into a relationship and see where it goes and see where it ends and just do your thing, but not like really doing the work to make the relationship pleasant for the both of you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I think at the beginning of any relationship, it's spontaneity that wins. So it's new and it's fresh. So you don't probably need to know each other's love language because they all work because it's new and it's fascinating, right?
Yeah.
This is more for when that infatuation phase finishes and people just give up.
Yeah.
You see that, all right, we're madly in love, we're going to do all these things. And then that infatuation stage finishes and she's like, did he always breathe that heavily? When he eats his cereal, did he always clunk the spoon with his teeth? God damn it, that's annoying. But he did it the whole time, right? She just notices it now because that phase is finished. That's a good time to work out what is the love language, or to work out whether or not you can live with a guy that breathes heavily. Right?
But don't complain.
Well, make sure you don't breathe heavily yourself before you complain. Anyway, that's funny.
No, to me, I think that is really good advice. You should look into it. So everyone in the beginning of a relationship, which is all fun and games now, just wait until the infatuation phase is over. And as Dr. Matt, the love guru, said, look into the love languages, and it will probably help you a lot.
Yep. You're welcome, everyone. That's not standard in the office, by the way. The relationship counselling, that's my side business, all right?
Yeah. You're like, your main business is being the chiropractor, and the love languages is like a side hustle.
Side hustle, that's right. Yeah, that's funny. But it's sort of a good point, right? Like, I guess most of what I described today is that human beings have a set of requirements. So in order to be healthy, to know what to do is actually very simple, right? Like, we all need quality in our relationships. We all need to eat a certain way. So we know this stuff already. It's very simple. It's easy to do. No, it's not. It's simple to know, but it's not easy to do. That's the tricky bit. But I think, isn't it nice? Isn't it refreshing that it's simple? Because Google fitness now. Just do a Google how to train.
Yeah.
And you'll find a gazillion different things that all contradict one another.
Yeah.
And for people who don't know what they're talking about, it's easy to give up, right? But if you want it to be really simple, just go do CrossFit. Like, find a guy with a gym with a good coach, because that's the only problem with CrossFit. If you've got a cowboy coach, you might get hurt. Find a good coach, do CrossFit. You want to eat properly, do paleo. Like, I kind of like how it's simple.
It's simple to know, not easy to do.
Not always easy to do.
In these days, finding knowledge is fairly easy.
Yep. The information age has been amazing, but also confusing, because any bloke with a computer now can create a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
So you have to be like, I'm not wonderful at reading research. It's difficult, right? Like, I'm not a scientist. So I have respected people in my network that I trust to read the research for me. So one of my mentors, James Chestnut, amazing chiropractor, wellness doc, he runs the CCWP, the lifestyle qualification I've got. When James reads research, I listen. So that'd be my advice to the confusing amount of information on the web. Find people that are well credentialed.
And listen to them. But
that doesn't mean you can't do your own research too. But I appreciate that it's difficult.
Yeah.
Sorry.
One topic I also wanted to talk about it. I think you have a little bit of knowledge in that. Is we've talked about what kind of nutrition we need to take in, but also not eating, fasting, is very beneficial, I think.
Yep.
And I also did a 36-hour fast, and I did a 48-hour fast, and it feels good. It's not easy to to eat for so long time, but how is your experience with that?
Yeah, I like fasting. I intermittent fast regularly. The 16-8 intermittent fast is something I just fall into. Feels good, feels right. I get the feeling that we didn't have an abundance of food back in the day. Why? We didn't have fridges and the current agricultural processes that we have today. And two, the body tells us that that's the case because it has a wonderful system to deal with a lack of food. When we have a lack of food and we're in a state of stress, our body will store it. And it's brilliant because it stores it in places of our body that don't affect our mobility. It puts it on our gut and our hips so we can still run and catch other food, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't have a system for overeating. There's no system, there's no safety net for overeating because it wasn't a problem from an evolutionary perspective back in the day. So for me, that just logically suggests that fasting was a natural part of life for humans as they developed. So I like it. I think it's healthy. I think it's a good stress. But, I think it's also something you should just listen to your body with. So I like a 16-8 fast. But sometimes I get up and have breakfast if I'm hungry. Mm-hmm.
It always depends on how your body is feeling and what it kind of tells you.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be strict on these 16-8 if it feels good to eat because for whatever reason, just eat.
Yeah, maybe the day before you did a heap of deadlifts and your nervous system is cooked and it just needs to be refueled. Cool. Mm-hmm. Go ahead and eat.
Listen to your body.
Yeah. And the challenge of a water fast, 48-hour water fast, once a month, I think it's a good challenge. Not for everyone.
Yeah.
Is it essential? Probably not. Is it a good life hack? Is it good for you?
Probably.
Yeah. It's not bad for you. Like ice baths and that kind of stuff.
Saunas.
Yeah. Essential? Probably not. Awesome? Yep. If you enjoy it, go for it.
Go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, there is a kind of state with fasting triggers that's called autophagy.
Yep.
That's. Can you explain a little bit what that is?
Really simply, it's just your body attempting to clear up junk DNA, waste products, things that came about through a faulty cell reproduction process because of stress in life, and it just gives it a chance to reset and clear out the junk. That's the best way to look at it. Which sounds good, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a sensible thing to do. But the problem was, like I said, back in the day, it would have just happened accidentally. The hunters would have gone out and not brought back food.
Yeah.
Oh, there's your fast, It wasn't scheduled, it just happened. Not enough rain. Lack of vegetables this month. Okay, that's cool. We're used to it. We can adapt to that.
We can adapt to it, exactly.
Yeah. Like I said, the overeating thing, that's new. It's a modern day problem. Now, the thing about evolution is we won't adapt to it if it doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. But the body doesn't just adapt to it because we keep doing it. If it's dumb, it's dumb. It won't adapt to that. So, overeating will always be bad.
Yeah, I also heard some good results with long day fasting. For even people with late state of cancer, they some do a 40-day or a 30-day water fasting, and they have amazing results. So maybe that state autophagy helps with clearing out disease and maybe other things.
I don't know enough about that, but I'd like to think that was the case.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
it makes sense. Yeah, if you. Yeah, it's amazing how the body works. Huh?
Yeah. Yep. It is amazing, and if you pretend to know it all, well, you can never know it all. I mean, that innate intelligence that I talked about, that universal intelligence, some people might call it God. It doesn't matter what you call it. You have to acknowledge the fact that there is an intelligence out there that we'll never fully understand. Trying to is crazy. But doing your best to nurture it, I think that's the key, and to listen to it. Like when you get a headache, that's your innate intelligence telling you the environment, the system, it's missing something it needs. Attempt to correct that, you know. It's beautiful. Just got to learn to listen. We forgot to listen a long time ago. That's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there other subjects you want to discuss?
No, not really. I think you pinpointed it quite correctly that we stopped listening a long time ago, and that is what brought us here, at least at this stage of life, like with the turmoil. We just stopped listening, and we stopped doing the things that our body normally tells us to do, and we started listening to other people who told us we do it this way. And we never questioned, or we never asked, why are you doing that, and do you have a copy?
That's right. There you go. That's the catchphrase. Yeah, I think just remember that you're designed to be extraordinary, and living an extraordinary life requires optimal health. Health has requirements. Work out what they are and do it, and then go for it.
Live your best life.
Live your best life.
Yeah. Live the life you wanted. Yeah, live the life you imagined.
Yep.
I do want to ask you if there are any personal goals you have to achieve in life, or maybe you are satisfied with the family and your son, the work that you do. I can imagine that is very rewarding, helping people.
Yeah, I'd like to run my own practice again. Having time apart away from that helped me to realise that I'm a better self-employed person. There are things that I want to do that you can't do when you're employed. So I'll run my own practice again, but I'll do it the way I want to do it this time, whilst maintaining balance. And I think I haven't really thought about that in a while. That's a good time for me to go look at my values and
maybe set some new goals.
Set some new goals. Yeah. I think a part of, like I said, the back home, the rat race, the burnout associated with it may have been down to the fact that I achieved everything I wanted to achieve in life quite young in terms of my sporting career. I got married, bought a house and my business in the same year, 2008. Got married, built a house, and bought my business. So 10 years later, I've done everything you're supposed to do in life, and I was probably feeling a little bit empty. So yeah, I think good time to. So never a bad time to reassess your goals and your values.
Yeah,
but I want to have my own practice, work alongside my wife, keep helping people, tap back into that role model, community, not a community leader, but a
thought leader.
An educator of my community, and be the best husband, father, and version of myself that I can. Not bad goals.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Yeah,
You guys are young, so you guys
we're still young,
got
and
a long way to go.
yeah. I do have the feeling I'm not in the place where I wanted to be. As you mentioned, I also think that if you're self-employed or if your own business and your own goals to work towards, then that gives a lot of more satisfaction than working for a boss, an employer.
The
Yeah.
man.
So that's one of the goals. I think for me, and being healthier and being in control. Is that maybe a good word?
Freedom.
Freedom.
That's what control
Yeah.
allows, isn't it? A bit more freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me as well, I think before you, while you were answering, Bob, the thing that popped into my mind was freedom. I just want freedom. Might be a how do you say it?
You could define what freedom means to you over time, right?
Exactly. It is a kind of a word with multiple definitions, but for me, freedom is the most important thing. Doing what I like when I want to do it, and not for instance, if I want to go to the park with my son in a couple of years on Wednesday, I want to go.
You'll be in that position. Yeah, that's cool.
Just freedom and health. I think when those
go
two
hand in hand, don't they?
those two combined gives you the extraordinary life that you talk about, and which is your default setting, in my opinion.
Yeah, me too.
So that freedom and health.
Living, not the dream, because the dream's different for everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So living my dream,
exactly.
living our dreams, whatever they may be.
Yeah. Speaking about dreams, should I play the bit from Bill Hicks?
Yeah, I think it's
It says a little bit maybe how we
and I think
look
it's
at life. And,
kind of just as we talked about it before, you didn't recognize or you didn't know Bill Hicks, did you? So I think it's good to go to the end of the podcast and just play this piece.
We'll start it. I hope I hit the right button. Ja, dat was het fragment wat ons heel erg aanspreekt. Matthew is even naar de wc, dus we zullen hem even de tijd geven om nog even met hem door te nemen misschien.
Maar het is in ieder geval wat gewoon heel erg resoneert met hoe wij erover denken. Nou, dat voor degenen die de eerste aflevering hebben geluisterd, die zullen wel die zullen het fragment bekend voorkomen en ook ons commentaar erop. Maar dat is nogmaals dat het erg resoneert met ons en vandaar eigenlijk ook de titel. It's just a ride.
Ja, inderdaad. We just play the clip and we find it funny how we what was his word that he realizes that matter's only energy condensed to a slow vibration, that we're all one consciousness experiencing ourselves subjectively. And then he said life is only a dream and we are the imagination of ourselves. Yeah, we find it funny to look at that way, and sometimes maybe is it a dream, maybe isn't it is real as we think it is.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty deep.
Yeah,
it is quite deep. Yeah,
Bit of butterfly effect crossed with Matrix.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's above my pay grade.
Yeah, maybe if you have some spare time, look at it. But yeah.
On my long drive home, I will I'll YouTube him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, man.
20, 30 minutes, not far.
So yeah, we've learned a lot from you.
Mm-hmm.
We thank you for being here, and I hope we can do this again in the future.
Yeah, my pleasure, boys. Thanks for having me, and I do look forward to having another talk about health or any topic really. We can. That was fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Also, when people want to experience your knowledge and your expertise, you work at Chiropractic Optimal Health.
Yes, in Assen.
In Assen, you have 3 places: Assen, Groningen, and Zwolle.
Yep, that's correct.
So, if people want to experience you or chiropractic itself, then they should go there and
get checked.
Get checked.
Get checked and feel better and be extraordinary.
Precies.
Yes. Thank you, Matthew.
My pleasure.